Chapter 802, A Tragic Battle, 1. The fierce battle continued, but the experts of 100 Spirit Capital City stopped at this moment. At this moment, the eyes of the experts from 100 Spirit Capital City were bloodshot. They looked coldly at the experts from the Carefree Empire. Finally, their eyes shifted to Marshal Saint Ming Luo on the War God. It was Marshal Saint Ming Luo who had ordered the destruction of the 100 Spirit Capital City. Now, the entire 100 Spirit Capital City had been destroyed. Even if they killed the Carefree dynasty, they would not be able to restore the prosperity of 100 Spirit Capital City. Very good, very good. Since you've destroyed my 100 Spirit Royal City, you have to pay the price for your destruction. Sima Kling's expression was cold and his heart was bleeding. The 100 Spirit Kingdom was his blood and sweat. Now that the 100 Spirit Capital City was basically destroyed, it would be difficult to vent the hatred in his heart if he did not destroy the Carefree Empire. Now, they could no longer hold back against the terrifying existence of Li Lingtian. Ha, if you want to destroy my Xiaoyao Empire, then come at me. Marshal Saint Ming Luo smiled and shouted. The enemy had already been destroyed, but the army of the Xiaoyao dynasty was still no match for the 100 Spirit Kingdom. Now that the battle had reached this stage, there was no way out. Kill, kill. At this moment, Sima Qing had already gone completely mad. He no longer had any scruples. With a wave of his hand, he gave the order to destroy the Carefree Empire. Immediately, the 100 Spirit Kingdom's super experts bombarded the Carefree dynasty's army from all directions. Without the array formation, there was no need to fear the Carefree dynasty's army at all. For a time, the army and experts of the Xiaoyao dynasty continued to fall. It was a complete massacre. Lord 100 Spirit Kingdom's powerful warriors slaughtered the Carefree dynasty's army and experts. In this situation, the army of the Xiaoyao dynasty was forced to retreat. Even if the army of the Xiaoyao dynasty used formations of different sizes, they would only be able to disappear in front of a super martial saint. At this moment, blood light soared into the sky, and the entire world trembled. The heavens were furious, as if they wanted to punish this destructive massacre. Countless thunderbolts and lightning bolts fell from the sky. A heavy downpour fell, washing away the bloody scene. However, the Carefree dynasty and 100 Spirit Kingdom had already gone crazy from killing. They had completely forgotten about humanity and only knew how to kill and destroy. Boom! At this moment, an explosion sounded in the distant void. However, this explosion did not attract the attention of the experts present at all. This was because all the experts had already killed until their eyes turned red. They did not care about anything else at all. In their eyes, there was only slaughter and destruction. However, countless soldiers saw a red dot appear in the sky. A red dot appeared in the distant void. After the red dot appeared, it rapidly expanded and formed a scarlet grid. The net instantly grew to 100 miles in size. A crack appeared in the center of the net, and a strange hole was torn in the air. When the opening appeared, a white-robed figure appeared. The white-robed figure quickly descended. When he arrived in the air, countless experts and the army noticed him and recognized that the white-robed figure was a white-robed youth. Moreover, this white-robed young man was someone they were familiar with. Someone shouted. Although this voice was not loud, it spread to the other experts and the army. Hearing this voice, all the experts and the army seemed to have been struck by lightning. They were all shocked and looked up at the sky. Young Master. It was this voice that caused countless experts to look up at the sky with shock in their eyes. The young man in white in the sky was Li Lingtian, the one who had crossed over. Li Lingtian. Li Lingtian. It's Li Lingtian. Li Lingtian is here. Young Master, it's Young Master. Young Master D is here. All of a sudden, all the experts and the army stopped. The experts and the army of the free and unfettered empire were excited and happy, and their eyes were filled with respect and worship. However, the experts and the army of the 100 Spirit Kingdom were shocked and afraid. Their eyes were filled with despair. They did not expect Li Lingtian to appear at this time. With his appearance, the outcome of Hundred Spirit Kingdom was beyond imagination. The sounds of countless demonic beasts could be heard in the sky. The entire space gradually quieted down. The strange atmosphere made the army and powerhouses feel extremely uncomfortable. Their eyes were fixed on Li Lingtian in the air, not knowing what he was thinking. Li Lingtian had a faint smile on his face. The smile did not change as he looked around the battlefield. He understood what was going on. Looking at the appearance of the Xiaoyao Empire army, he was furious. Very good, very good. Li Lingtian's lips curled into a smile as he spoke indifferently. He looked at all the powerhouses in the 100-spirit capital city before he strode forward in the air. His target was the 100-spirit capital city. The aura on his body skyrocketed, and the space immediately trembled in front of this aura. His cultivation was at the first sky of the martial saint realm, but his aura had reached the 9th sky of the martial saint realm. It had even surpassed the 9th sky of the martial saint realm. Those who obey will prosper, and those who rebel will die. Since we want to resist, we have to do what we can. Since that's the case, I'll let you witness my true power. The divine marshal chooses the heavenly sword, and the sword will destroy the world. This is the first time I've used it to perform the myriad returning swords. As long as you can withstand my attack, you can live. If you can't remove it, then it's up to you. Li Lingtian maintained the smile on his face. Regardless of the reason, he deserved to die since he had the intention to destroy the Xiaoyao dynasty. He said calmly as he walked slowly. Despite his calm expression, the 100 Spirit Kingdom's powerhouses and army began to tremble. Although Li Lingtian had yet to make a move, his oppressive aura was making them feel uncomfortable. In front of Li Lingtian, he felt as if he was looking at the Grim Reaper. The pressure he gave them was even more terrifying than that of the martial god. After all, Li Lingtian had killed 2 martial god powerhouses. In the divine martial continent, no one had ever heard of a martial god being killed in a solo battle. However, Li Lingtian, a martial saint powerhouse, had managed to kill 2 martial god powerhouses one after another. Such a terrifying move left everyone in awe and fear. All the soldiers and experts of the 100 Spirit Kingdom retreated quickly. Faced with a young man, the millions of soldiers and tens of thousands of powerhouses did not dare to put up any resistance. Instead, they retreated step by step. Similarly, no one dared to flee for fear of being killed by Li Lingtian. This scene was extremely strange. The army and experts of the Xiaoyao dynasty were extremely excited. This was because they had witnessed Li Lingtian suppressing all the powerhouses and the army before he had even made a move. Such an imposing manner and prestige was enough to make all the powerhouses submit. Li Lingtian walked as he spoke, his eyes fixed on all the powerhouses. His tone was as if he was judging all the experts. As soon as he finished speaking, a stream of light appeared between his eyebrows. The divine martial profound heaven sword appeared in front of him. The divine martial heaven choosing sword spun continuously, and a destructive aura spread out. This aura continued to erode the air. However, when the divine sword appeared, 3 exquisite small swords also appeared in front of him. Countless experts of the Carefree dynasty had seen the 3 exquisite swords before. They were the 3 heavenly swords. After Li Lingtian had refined the 3 heavenly swords, they could be fused together. The power of the fusion of the 3 heavenly swords was unimaginable. Boom! In the air, destructive pressure exploded. The 3 heavenly swords were all supreme saint weapons, and the divine martial heaven selection sword was a supreme ancient divine weapon. The pressure wreaked havoc in the air, stirring the air and distorting it. At the same time, the destructive pressure directly suppressed countless armies, making them unable to move at all. Even the martial emperors and martial saints felt the space around them turn sluggish due to the pressure. Their faces were filled with fear and despair. Do it. If we don't do it now, we're finished. Let's work together. No matter how powerful he is, he's only a first sky martial saint. We can definitely get rid of him if we work together. Yeah, let's do it. Do you all want to be destroyed? If you want to be killed, you don't have to do anything. 1, 2, 3, attack together. Looking at Li Lingshan's imposing manner and dominance, all the powerhouses understood that they would not be able to go against him easily this time. Li Lingtian was already filled with killing intent and he would not let anyone off. Now that things had come to this point, they would not let themselves be killed. Only by joining forces would they have a chance of defeating Li Lingtian. Instantly, all the experts unleashed their most powerful attacks. The space trembled and tore apart in front of the violent destructive aura of countless experts. The smile on Li Lingshan's face widened when he saw all the powerhouses working together. At that moment, without any hesitation, he extended his hand and a ball of light appeared in his palm. Immediately, Li Lingshan's body emitted the metal will of the way. After the metal will of the Great Path appeared, the space was filled with metal, elemental spiritual energy and force. At the same time, Li Lingshan's aura rapidly changed as a destructive sword will soared into the sky. He was like a sharp sword that stood proudly between heaven and earth. The three heavenly swords and the divine martial black heavenly sword in front of him were also spinning continuously. Every time they spun, the sword essence would increase by a large margin. Myriad swords return. Li Lingtian spoke calmly as if he was talking to himself. With a single clap of his hand, the ball of light transformed into tens of thousands of sharp swords that hovered around Li Lingtian. With him as the center, sharp swords spun within a radius of 1,000 meters. At the same time, the divine black heavenly sword and the three heavenly swords entered these sharp swords. This place formed a world of swords. Li Lingtian had become the soul of this sword world. His gaze was extremely sharp and his icy gaze was like a sharp sword that could pierce through the void. Tens of thousands of sharp swords spun rapidly. They seemed to be spinning without any order, but there were traces of connection between them. Sword chi and sword light appeared, and at the same time, there were countless sword threads between these sword chi and sword light. With Li Lingtian at the center, the entire sky had formed a mystical sword world. Chapter 803, Victory. Looking at the mystical sword world, all the experts began to tremble. This was the true supreme sword Tao, the return of 10,000 swords. One person could control 10,000 swords and unleash destructive power. The entire process from the moment all the powerhouses joined forces to the moment Li Lingtian unleashed the myriad returning swords seemed to have taken a long time, but it only took a few seconds. At this moment, tens of thousands of experts joined forces to unleash countless destructive attacks. The entire space began to tear apart in front of countless attacks, like a broken mirror. A devastating attack came crashing down on Li Lingtian. However, Li Lingtian did not show the slightest fear as he watched the oncoming attacks. Instead, he waved his hand with a faint smile of excitement. With a wave of his hand, tens of thousands of sharp swords instantly shot forward with a halo. As the 10,000 swords flew together, they carried a destructive sword light. There was a slight connection between the sword lights. At this moment, the myriad returning swords was no longer a single sharp sword, but a complete array. Moreover, the divine martial profound heaven sword and the three heavenly swords became the core of the sword formation. The power of the ancient divine weapon and the heavenly sword was unleashed to the extreme at this moment, and the sky immediately trembled. The sharp sword tore through the void and fiercely bombarded the countless attacks. Boom! 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 Rumble! Li Lingtian advanced step by step behind the sword formation. Wherever the sword formation passed, the attacks it encountered were instantly reduced to nothingness. It was completely unable to shake the sword formation. Furthermore, the sword formation devoured countless attacks. Gradually, the tens of thousands of attacks in the air disappeared, completely devoured by the sword formation. Ah! Following the first scream, the first martial saint was swallowed by the sword formation. Following that, Li Lingtian activated the sword formation and swiftly shuttled through the countless powerhouses. The sword formation left a bloody stench in its wake as countless powerhouses vanished into thin air. The sword formation formed a circle of light. It was no longer a single sharp sword. All the sharp swords had turned into sword silks. The domineering power of the sword silks could ignore the attacks of any expert, as well as the defenses and treasures of any expert. The army and experts of the Xiaoyao dynasty were stunned when they saw the scene in the sky. He did not expect this myriad returning swords to be so terrifying. Even a martial saint powerhouse could not resist at all. In the air, the number of experts decreased, and the sword formation became more and more terrifying. At this moment, the experts of the 100 Spirit Kingdom who had not died were scared out of their wits. Boom! Boom! Explosions continued to sound between heaven and earth as the sword formation devoured countless experts. The more experts it devoured, the more terrifying the sword formation became. Die! Li Lingxian's face turned pale as his vital essence was depleted. Now, more than half of these experts had already fallen. Their goal had already been achieved. With a light shout, the remaining true essence in his body exploded out. 10,000 swords exploded in the air, but the tens of thousands of sharp swords pierced through the air. Countless experts quickly fell, and the army fell like rain. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As the last sound of the air being torn apart faded away, Li Lingtian had already retrieved the tens of thousands of swords. Thousands of sharp swords transformed into a ball of light that landed in Li Lingxian's hand. With a single slap, the ball of light vanished. The divine black heavenly sword and the 3 heavenly swords hovered in front of Li Lingtian. Li Lingtian stopped in his tracks and looked at the remaining powerhouses in the sky. The remaining powerhouses looked horrified and desperate. At that moment, Li Lingtian was hovering in the air as he stared at the countless powerhouses as if he was judging them. Hush! The Xiaoyao Empire army all let out a cold breath. Although he knew that Li Lingtian was powerful, he did not expect Li Lingxian's strength to reach such a level that he regarded a martial saint as nothing. The so-called powerhouses were nothing but ants in front of Li Lingtian. However, the experts of the Carefree Empire were all excited and had looks of worship on their faces. Young Master, Young Master. Young Master D, Young Master D. All the soldiers and experts of the Xiaoyao dynasty cheered, and their voices shook the sky. The remaining experts of the 100 Spirit Kingdom no longer had the will to fight. They did not even have the will to resist. Previously, they had heard that Li Lingtian was extremely powerful. However, they had never expected a martial saint powerhouse to possess such skills and abilities. It was completely beyond their imagination. This was beyond the scope of a martial saint powerhouse in the divine martial continent. There was no warrior sage powerhouse that was this powerful. The way they looked at Li Lingtian was as if they were looking at a monster or the Grim Reaper. Those who obey will prosper, and those who rebel will die. I'll give you 3 seconds. Li Lingxian's cold gaze swept across the remaining 100 Spirit Kingdoms powerhouses and army before he spoke indifferently. Now, he had achieved his goal. If the other party did not submit, he could kill all the experts. One less expert from the 100 Spirit Kingdom was insignificant. At worst, he could go to the Southwind Kingdom and destroy it, subduing its experts. Surrender. Submit. Walala. Walala. As soon as Li Lingxian's voice fell, all the troops and powerhouses quickly surrendered. All the powerhouses descended and surrendered before Freedom King Dynasty. Instantly, the entire army and experts of the 100 Spirit Capital City disappeared into the air and knelt on the ground. Li Lingxian's lips curled into a faint smile as he looked at the powerhouses and the army below. 100 Spirit Capital City's army of 10 million soldiers had already suffered heavy losses. With Li Lingxian's 1,000 returning swords bombardment, only half of the powerhouses remained. Li Lingxian's terror had cast a shadow in the hearts of countless powerhouses. They had long given up hope and did not even have the chance to escape. Hearing Li Lingshan's words, it was as if he had been pardoned halfway. He was afraid that he would be killed if he was a little slower in submitting. Those who obey will prosper, and those who rebel will die. Sweep the Black Continent and unify the world. The army and experts of the Carefree Dynasty cheered. The entire 100-spirit capital city was filled with the cheers of the Carefree Dynasty army. The earth-shattering sound soared into the sky, and the 9 heavens trembled. Seeing that 100-spirit capital city had surrendered, Li Lingshan's figure flashed and he quickly left the city. He looked into the distance and waited for Tang Qingyue and the others to arrive. Following that, the army and experts of the Carefree Dynasty began to reorganize the army and experts of the 100-spirit capital city. After an hour, a huge silver war god appeared in the sky. Li Lingshan's lips curled into a faint smile when he saw the arrival of the god of war. After arriving here, he used the myriad swords Return to the Origin, which destroyed the morale of the entire 100-spirit kingdom and pacified the 100-spirit kingdom. This was the power of an expert. A true expert could overturn the heavens and earth, and could control the battle of millions of troops. The war god arrived at 100-spirit capital city in a split second. Li Lingshan's figure flashed back to the war god. Tang Qingyue and the others came forward and examined Li Lingshan's body to see if he was injured. Even though they knew that Li Lingtian would not necessarily die even if he encountered a martial god powerhouse, they were still extremely concerned. This was kinship, the kind of concern that only family members could have. Big brother Ling Tian is the most powerful. He managed to settle the battle in such a short time. Tang Zimeng was relieved to see that Li Lingtian was not injured. She was happy as long as Li Lingtian was not injured. As she spoke, she snuggled up to Li Lingtian in a coquettish manner. Of course. This is a piece of cake for Imperial Uncle. Xian Yuanqingqing was also delighted. She was already 7 years old and had learned a lot from Li Lingtian and the others. She was also very knowledgeable. Tang Qingyue and Huangfu Yuyan's knowledge, as well as some of the things they had seen and heard in the divine martial continent, had told Xian Yuanqingqing that she was now a talented girl. Even an ordinary martial saint powerhouse might not know as much as her. In Li Lingshan's opinion, girls had to rely on themselves and learn how to protect themselves at all times. This was because girls were at a disadvantage in the divine martial continent and were not as casual as men. He did not want the obedient girl he had raised for 10 or 20 years to be deceived by others. This place is too murderous. Let's leave this place first. Li Lingtian smiled. He had just consumed too much of his energy and was not injured at all. The battle in 100-spirit capital city had just ended and the stench of blood was too heavy. The space was also shaken and the spirit chi was extremely chaotic. It was not suitable for him to rest. After saying that, he gave an order to have the war god fly towards the 100-spirit capital city. This time, it was heading towards the Southwind Kingdom. The 100-spirit kingdom had been conquered, and they only needed to reorganize for a period of time. As for whether the Southwind Kingdom had made any preparations or joined forces to resist the Carefree Empire, it was not something they could control. In Li Lingshan's opinion, no matter how powerful the Southwind Kingdom was, it was only the final blow. It was insignificant. As long as there was no martial god in the kingdom, they would not be a match for the Carefree dynasty. The war god flew for 100,000 kilometers before stopping on a lake. With such a powerful war god, it was impossible to hide even if one wanted to. The only way was to use the war god's powerful heaven-defying array. However, this would affect the spiritual energy. Inside the war god, Li Lingtian was cultivating in peace while Tang Zhenji and the rest were cultivating seriously. As for the news from outside, Tang Qingyue enters Koldial with it if they were not cultivating. Currently, the free and unfettered dynasty was attacking the 4 great kingdoms. Generally speaking, there was nothing major. However, what they did not expect was that news came from below. The Nanfeng Kingdom, the Yuhan Kingdom, and the Kingdom of Heaven's Roars had joined forces to resist the free and unfettered empire's attack. Moreover, a mysterious expert had appeared in the three great kingdoms. All the factions in the three great kingdoms were controlled by the mysterious expert. The secret agent who received the news passed it on to Longda before he died. It was because of this that Li Lingtian was surprised. Li Lingshan's expression changed drastically when he saw the fallen secret agent's condition. His expression gradually turned grave. "I'll add more updates tomorrow on Monday and hit the top 10 in the sales rankings. Please give me monthly votes and donations." Chapter 804, Yin Poison and Cold Poison. Cold poison, Yin poison. Li Lingshan's expression turned grave as he looked at the fallen spy. It was the first time he had seen such a cold poison and Yin poison that could destroy a third sky martial saint. Moreover, this cold poison and Yin poison were slow-acting. As long as one was injured by this cold poison, even the most powerful expert would be corroded by this cold poison. They would be corroded by the cold poison and Yin poison for the rest of their lives, and it would be difficult for them to advance their cultivation. Moreover, those with slightly lower cultivation would be instantly destroyed or slowly consume their lifespan and die. Yin poison and cold poison. I don't think it has ever appeared in the Black Continent or the Azure Continent. Besides, Yin poison and cold poison aren't something that can be cultivated by the same martial artist. How could it appear in one person? Huangfu Yuyan and the rest looked at Li Lingtian before their eyes fell on the warrior sage powerhouse's corpse on the ground. There were no injuries on the body of this martial saint expert, but his entire body had turned black. There was a hint of green and white in the black, and waves of cold air continuously emitted. Her appearance was terrifying. Li Lingtian was naturally no match for her in terms of knowledge. However, she was not familiar with Yin poison and frost poison at the moment. She had never even heard of them. Yin poison is the aura of a meditation cultivator's cultivation technique. Cold poison is the true qi cultivated by a cultivator who cultivates cold qi. It's almost as difficult as ascending to the heavens to fuse the two auras. However, if you really fuse them, you'll be incomparably powerful. I didn't expect such an expert to appear in the three great kingdoms. It seems that the three great kingdoms aren't as simple as they seem. Li Lingtian smiled bitterly. He had thought that the four kingdoms would not have to do much, but he did not expect such a thing to happen. Immediately, Li Lingtian unleashed the Nine Suns Sacred Flame. The destructive Nine Suns Sacred Flame quickly turned the martial saint powerhouse's corpse into ashes. If he didn't deal with it quickly, it would spread. At that time, who knew how many experts would be attacked by the Yin poison and the cold poison? After settling everything, he brought Tang Genji and the others back to the living room. They had no choice but to deal with this matter. They were not in the mood to cultivate now. Moreover, Li Lingtian was excited to meet such a powerhouse. After all, it was rare to meet a worthy opponent. The two martial gods he had killed earlier were at the first heaven, so it was no challenge for Li Lingtian. Now that the war for the unification of the four kingdoms had just begun, a mysterious expert had already appeared. Naturally, they were filled with anticipation. However, no matter what the situation was, he had to take the initiative. He didn't want to wait until he died. That would be too big of a deal. The 100th Spirit Kingdom has just been conquered. Do you have any good ideas? Should we attack the Southwind Kingdom immediately or wait for a while? Li Lingtian asked after he returned to the living room. His eyes swept across Huangfu Yuyan and the rest of the ladies before he rested his chin on his hand and waited for their opinion. No matter how powerful one person was, he was not as good as a large group of people. After all, everyone's opinions were different. If there were good opinions, it would be easy to deal with them. Huangfu Yuyan and the others were extremely intelligent and knowledgeable. This information was obtained from the mouth of a secret agent. Moreover, it seems that the secret agents in the three kingdoms have all been wiped out. We can be sure that the three great kingdoms will not submit. At least, they will not submit until they have killed their main characters. Therefore, we must use our strongest strength to destroy the armies of the three kingdoms and eliminate the mastermind behind the scenes. Tang Genji was silent for a moment before she spoke first. As she spoke, she looked at Li Lingtian with her beautiful eyes. When she saw the expression on his face, she was shocked to see that he was still smiling and staring at her. Tang Genji glared at Li Lingtian when she saw his reaction. Immediately, the other girls giggled when they saw this. Tang Qingyu's face turned red. She lowered her head and stopped talking. What have you been thinking about all day? Sister Qingyue is right in front of you every day. Haven't you seen enough? Huang Fu Yuyan said with a smile. It would have been better if she hadn't said anything, but now that she had said it, Tang Qingyue felt even more embarrassed. Then, he spoke his thoughts with a serious expression on his face and said softly, Sister Blue Moon is right. The three kingdoms will not submit. If we want to wipe them out, we will have to rely on our own strength. Furthermore, this is a test for the Carefree Empire's army, as well as for us. We don't know the background of such an expert. We don't know how powerful he is. Such an expert is the most terrifying. As Huang Fu Yuyan spoke, she analyzed the experts behind the three great kingdoms. They definitely had something to do with yin poison and cold poison. Those powerhouses were well aware that Li Lingtian was going to attack the three kingdoms, yet they still dared to stop him. They must have a certain degree of confidence. Moreover, it seemed that these experts were not from the Black Continent. There were no such experts in the Black Continent. At least, the few famous martial god experts in the Black Continent were not insidious or cold. Husband, you have to be careful this time. You can barely fight a battle at the first level of the war god realm. Even if there are 2 or 3 first-level martial god experts, you can still leave easily. However, if you encounter even more martial god experts or terrifying second-level martial god experts, what confidence do you have? Therefore, the other party dared to set up an ambush at that place because they understand your strength. They must be confident. As the saying goes, one doesn't dare to go to Liangshan without 3/10 of their strength. A serious expression appeared on Shun Meyer's charming face. As his cultivation increased, he would encounter more and more things, and the experts he encountered would be more terrifying. In the past, they had never thought that they would come into contact with powerhouses like Wuzun and Martial Emperor, let alone martial saints and martial gods. However, after a few years, not only did they meet each other, but they had also become martial emperors themselves. Li Lingtian was also a martial saint powerhouse. Moreover, these martial emperors and martial saints were nothing but ants in front of them. Mei is right. We have to be careful this time. See if there's anything wrong with my idea. The Carefree Empire and 100 Spirit Capital City armies are going all out to attack the Southwind Kingdom. If we encounter any mysterious experts in the Southwind Kingdom, we can fight them as soon as possible. If the Southwind Kingdom doesn't have any mysterious experts, we can wipe them out. While the Carefree Dynasty and 100 Spirit Capital Cities armies are marching, he'll go into seclusion to comprehend the method to deal with yin poison and cold poison. He'll try to think of a way to deal with these experts when the war arrives. Seeing that the girls shared the same thoughts, Li Lingtian did not hesitate any longer. He told them his plan so that Huang Fu Yuyan and the others could take note of it. If his plan worked, they could follow suit. In any case, the matter had already appeared and had to be dealt with. Even if they did not attack the three kingdoms, those experts would still come looking for him. There was no way to avoid the disaster. After saying that, he waited for the girls to come up with ideas. Yes, what you said is feasible. That's right. We'll meet sooner or later anyway. The sooner we settle it, the better. Big brother Ling Tian wants to resolve the yin poison and frost poison. Qing Ling cultivates the 9 yin heaven scroll, and big sister Qing Yu also has the yin constitution. In that case, it'll be helpful for you to cultivate an ice attribute cultivation method. That's right. Although the frosty Qi doesn't pose much of a threat to you, it'll be much easier if you have Qingyue and Qingling to study it together. The girls did not have any objections to Li Lingshan's words. However, they were all looking at Qingyu and Qingling. Both of them were of the ice element. If they cultivated together with Li Lingtian, they should be able to help him during the battle. Alright, it's decided then. Qingling and Qingyue will cultivate with me. I've ordered the armies of the Carefree Dynasty and the 100 Spirit Kingdom to march into the Southwind Kingdom with all their might. When the time comes, we'll have a decisive battle in the Southwind Kingdom. Let's go cultivate first. Yuyan, you guys take care of these things. Oh right, pass this to Lu Haoyan and the others. After they recover, they can comprehend these two sets of array formations. This time, don't exhaust the Carefree Dynasty and 100 Spirit Capital Cities armies too much. We can use the array formations to destroy the Southwind Kingdom. Li Lingtian finally made up his mind and began giving instructions. He then took out a brocade box and handed it to Huangfu Yuyan. With them handling these matters, he was more at ease. Following that, Li Lingtian led Qingyu and Qingling out of the living room and headed for the training room. The training room on the war god was specially built and extremely sturdy. Moreover, there were countless arrays inside. The arrays of the 5 elements were all inside. He would activate the array formation of the attribute he cultivated. This way, it could help with his cultivation. After the 3 of them entered the practice room, Li Lingtian asked Tang Qingyue and Qingling to cultivate on their own. He had to think about it carefully. This time, it was not just the cold poison. The cold poison might not be a cultivation technique like the ice true qi. Moreover, there was also the yin poison. The yin poison was a meditation cultivation technique. If 2 heaven-defying and terrifying cultivation techniques appeared in one person's body, it would not be so easy to resolve. Then, he began to ponder and thought about everything. In his knowledge and memories, there was no such cold cultivation technique at all, because the cultivation technique was either cold or yin qi. There were really not many cultivation techniques like his ice and fire qi, but such a thing could not be ruled out. Since he had such a cultivation technique, others naturally had such a cultivation technique as well. If a cold cultivation technique really appeared, it was definitely not a good thing. At least, it was not a good thing for them. Li Lingtian entered the clear sky realm and tried to think of all the cultivation techniques, but he could not come up with any way to deal with the yin cold technique. However, he had also made up his mind not to mix the yin poison and the cold poison together. Instead, he would deal with them separately. If the matter was complicated, it would only lead him into a dead end. Today's 8 chapters, Seeking Submissions, Reward, Month Pass, and Referrers Pass. Chapter 805, Raincloud City, 1. Days passed, and the Freedom Empire unified the 100 Spirit Kingdom. The entire Mystic Moon Empire was shaken. It had been less than 2 years since the establishment of the Carefree Dynasty, and in just 2 years, they had unified the Moonsong Kingdom and the 100 Spirit Kingdom. Moreover, the Carefree Dynasty's slogan was to sweep through the Mystic Continent and unify the world. The unification of the 100 Spirit Kingdom had greatly increased the strength of the Carefree Kingdom. Moreover, Li Lingshan's reputation had already spread throughout the Mystic Moon Empire. His terrifying cultivation base and tyrannical methods had become the kingdom's powerhouse's nightmare. What shocked all the kingdoms was that after the free and unfettered dynasty unified the 100 Spirit Kingdom, they didn't delay at all. After reorganizing their army, they charged towards the Southern Wind Kingdom. This momentum was like a whirlwind that swept away clouds and destroyed everything in its path. In half a month, the Southwind Kingdom was unified. A month later, the Epsilon Kingdom was unified. With the merger of the 3 kingdoms and the original strength of the Carefree Empire, the army of the Carefree Empire had now reached 30 million, and there were also tens of thousands of super experts. The current Carefree Empire was no longer as weak as before. This was because countless 9 heavens had submitted to the Freedom King dynasty, causing the strength of the Freedom King dynasty to soar. However, a strange situation appeared. The countless 9th heavenly layer martial saints of the Nanfeng Kingdom and the Yuhan Kingdom had disappeared. These 9th firmament martial saints were basically all gathered in the Kingdom of Heaven's roars. Seeing this, everyone understood that the 3 kingdoms were not united. Some powerhouses did not want to fight Li Lingtian, but some hoped to join forces to defeat him. 2 factions were formed at once. The powerhouses who submitted to Li Lingtian followed Li Lingtian and the Carefree dynasty. The powerhouses who came to the Kingdom of Heaven's roars were here to compete with Li Lingtian. Immediately, half of the experts from the 4 kingdoms gathered in the Kingdom of Heaven's roars, while the other half gathered in the Carefree dynasty army. From this situation, all the other kingdoms and experts in the Mystic Moon Empire understood one thing. The Freedom Empire and the Kingdom of Heaven's roars were in a war that could destroy the heavens and earth. In this war, both sides would die. After this war, the Xiaoyao dynasty would either become stronger or collapse. However, after this war, the Mystic Moon Empire was destined to be in a state of chaos, and it might even spread to the entire Mystic continent. Boom! Boom! The 30 million super army was like a sharp arrow, piercing through the entire Kingdom of Heaven's roars and pressing down on the capital city. The entire world was shaking. Countless experts from the Mystic Moon Empire were watching this battle. Even the experts from the Sky Blue Empire and the Heavenly Sun Empire, as well as secret agents, and experts from other large kingdoms, were all looking at the Kingdom of Heaven's roars. The entire Xian continent, with the Kingdom of Heaven's roars as the center, all eyes focused on him. This war was premeditated. The experts of the 3 kingdoms had joined forces to deal with the Carefree dynasty. Their final target was the #1 alchemy saint of the Divine Martial Continent. Just this name alone was enough to divert the attention of the experts and forces of the entire Black Continent and attract the attention of countless experts. On the land of the Kingdom of Heaven's roars, countless kingdoms were destroyed, and the entire Kingdom of Heaven's roars was in flames of war. Wherever the Xiaoyao dynasty went, they would submit. Li Lingshan's reputation was once again pushed to the peak of Xianzhou. Watercloud Great City was the capital of the Watercloud Nation under the Kingdom of Heaven's roars. Now that the Watercloud Nation had long surrendered, this place had also become the garrison of the Carefree dynasty's army. Moreover, the Water Transport Grand City was the closest city to the Heaven's Roar's capital city. The distance between the 2 huge cities was only 500,000 miles. For an army of 30 million martial arts grandmasters and above, 500,000 miles was only a day's effort. For the Divine Wind, Divine Dragon, and Divine Martial Army, it would only take 1 or 2 hours. There was another problem with the 30 million troops stationed in Raincloud City. Marshal Saint Ming Luo's family was in Raincloud City, and the Ming family belonged to Raincloud Nation. As the commander-in-chief of the 3 armies, he was naturally under great pressure when facing such a powerful army. If he was not careful, his entire army would be wiped out. Moreover, this battle had become the focus of the entire Black Continent. He did not dare to be negligent. The army could not enter the City of Heaven's roars rashly. They could only station themselves in the city and await Li Lingshan's orders. In the past, Marshal Saint Ming Luo was just an unremarkable figure in the clan and was even ostracized. However, this time, Marshal Saint Ming Luo was the commander of the 3 armies of the Xiaoyao dynasty. She was a super powerhouse who commanded an army of 30 million. She was also the most trusted subordinate of the Divine Martial Continent's #1 divine alchemist, Li Lingtian. Finally, all the ostracization in the past could be held high at this time. In front of Marshal Saint Ming Luo, the experts of countless clans became insignificant. Although there were countless experts in the clan, and there were even the Grand Elders at the 9th heavenly layer of the Martial Saint realm, the 30 million troops under him could easily wipe out this clan. Moreover, there were more than 200 9th firmament martial saints below him. Such strength was completely heaven-defying. The Ming family had never thought that one day, an unremarkable disciple of their family would actually become the commander of an army of 30 million, the commander of tens of thousands of super experts. Just the name of the carefree dynasty alone was enough to make a family vanish into thin air. Just the name of Li Lingtian alone was enough to shake the entire mystic continent. However, Marshal Saint Ming Luo did not oppress the Ming family at all. After all, he was a member of the Ming family. The past was all in the past. In this world, the strong were respected. That was how it was. It was his own destiny to be where he was today. He had the opportunity to meet Li Lingtian and become his subordinate. He also had the courage to submit and follow Li Lingtian. If it were any other powerhouse, they would naturally not follow a martial artist who was weaker than them, but he did it. At the same time, he had made the right choice. Li Lingtian, who used to be unremarkable, was now a super powerhouse that shook the entire Xian continent. His strength was comparable to the martial god and the divine martial continent's #1 divine alchemist. Third uncle, is the person you're talking about really that powerful? Do you think he really has the ability to cure third sister's illness? After the army settled down in the city, the three armies were reorganized and a great battle was about to break out. It was extremely quiet between the two cities, but everyone knew that this was the calm before the storm. Marshal Saint Ming Luo was sitting on the main seat in the palace of the Water Cloud Nation. There was only a 15 or 16-year-old girl in the entire hall. She had delicate features and was not a peerless beauty, but she was still a beauty. At this moment, he looked at Marshal Saint Ming Luo, who was sitting on the main seat, and his face revealed a trace of restraint. After all, Marshal Saint Ming Luo was now the commander of the three armies and the subordinate of that legendary figure. However, he couldn't help but ask Marshal Saint Ming Luo curiously. "You little girl, it's been 10 years since we last met, but you've become distant from your third uncle. Come to third uncle. He is a legend, a miracle of the Xian continent, a miracle of the divine martial continent. He can't be described as a genius. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call him a monster. He rose to power at the age of 14 and reached the martial sage realm in just 10 years. His strength is comparable to a martial god realm expert. He is a genius in alchemy. In just 10 years, he has become a level 8 divine alchemist and is known as the #1 divine alchemist in the divine martial continent. Sigh, as for your third sister's matter, only he can try. If even he can't cure her, no one in this world can. However, I didn't tell young master now. After young master's cultivation stabilizes and these things are resolved, I'll ask young master to help your third sister." Marshal Saint Ming Luo looked at the young girl in front of her and smiled faintly. She reached out her hand and gestured for the young girl to sit on the chair beside her. When he looked at the young girl, a kind smile appeared on his face. "Wow, he's so powerful. He's even more powerful than the #1 heaven of Water Cloud Nation, Bai Yunfei." The young girl looked at Marshal Saint Ming Luo's kind smile and became bolder. The restraint on her body also relaxed. In the past, in the Ming family, it was her third uncle and her grandfather who treated her the best. However, her grandfather passed away 3 years ago. From then on, she was almost an orphan in the Ming family. Now, the third uncle who doted on him had returned. He was extremely happy, but seeing that his third uncle controlled countless experts and was the commander of an army of 30 million, he could not help but feel a little restrained. When she heard that the person her third uncle mentioned was so powerful, she was filled with envy and admiration. However, no matter what Marshal Saint Ming Luo said, he did not see it with his own eyes. In the Water Cloud Nation, the #1 genius, Bai Yunfei, was the strongest. He had reached the 7th sky of the martial saint realm at the age of 40. Ha, Bai Yunfei. Young master only needs one look and one thought to kill him. Even your third uncle is confident in killing him now. The young master's strength is indescribable. No matter what kind of expert he is, they will all fall before him. Even I can't see the young master's true strength. It can be said that no one in the divine martial continent can kill him. When Marshal Saint Ming Luo heard Bai Yunfei's name, a trace of hatred appeared in his eyes. Although he didn't know who was responsible for his second brother's death, he knew that Bai Yunfei had something to do with it. Bai Yunfei revealed a cruel smile as he spoke. In front of the young master, Bai Yunfei was nothing but an ant. "Third uncle, are you still leaving Raincloud Nation this time?" The young girl's eyes became misty. Her third uncle had finally returned. If he left again, she would become an orphan again. In her heart, third uncle was her only family now. Yan Er, third uncle is now following the young master to conquer the world. The young master is going to sweep through the entire Xian continent and unify the world. Naturally, I want to stay in the Water Cloud Nation. Are you willing to leave with third uncle? If you are willing to leave the Ming family, third uncle can go to young master and tell him that you will go to young master's place and serve him. At least you won't be bullied by others. Marshal Saint Ming Luo stood up and walked in front of Ming Yan Er. She reached out and stroked her hair. Her eyes were filled with kindness, as if she was looking at her own granddaughter. After saying that, he looked at Ming Yan Er. This matter also depended on Ming Yan Er. After all, Ming Yan Er was not young anymore. Chapter 806, The Ming Family's Yan Er. Third uncle, is it true? Ming Yan Er was stunned when she heard Marshal Saint Ming Luo's words. She only reacted after a long time. He had an excited smile on his face. It would be an honor to be able to follow that legendary figure. In the divine martial continent, women did not have any backing. They could only be the sacrificial victims of this world. They would often become the vassals of powerful experts or marry powerful experts as concubines. However, a woman without good looks was sad. Moreover, many girls with good looks did not want to be a man's vassal. Although Ming Yan Er did not have much status in the Ming family, she was a good girl. Furthermore, she was very talented. However, she was not a direct descendant, so she could not be nurtured. Up until now, she was only a Tier 8 warrior spirit disciple. Even though she rarely left the Ming family, Li Lingxian's name had been shining like a comet during this period of time. He had spread far and wide and shocked the world. Naturally, she had heard of him. However, she did not expect her third uncle to be this person's subordinate. If he really had such a powerful figure protecting him now, he could be nurtured in the future and would not be bullied. It will depend on your ability in the future. During this period of time, young master is cultivating. After the war here is settled, he'll find an opportunity to tell young master. Remember, in front of young master, what should be known and what should not be known, what should be said and what should not be said, you must be clear about all these. Also, young master doesn't like betrayal and betrayal. I think your second brother's granddaughter. I don't have any juniors, so I treat you as my granddaughter. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gone to look for young master. Whether or not you can stay by the young master's side will depend on your own fortune and opportunities. Marshal Saint Ming Luo smiled faintly when she saw Ming Yan Er's expression. However, her expression was extremely serious when she finished speaking. It was only right for him to feel sorry for his juniors, but he wanted them to understand his young master's habits. He did not want his juniors to go against Li Lingtian or betray his young master. If it really came to that, even if he had to die to atone for his sins, it would not be worth it. I understand. I will definitely follow third uncle's guidance. Yan Er will go back first. Ming Yan Er looked at Marshal Saint Ming Luo's serious expression and knew that her third uncle was serious. She could not betray her young master at all. After saying that, he bowed respectfully and left. He was extremely curious in his heart. What kind of heaven-defying figure was this to actually make his third uncle respect him so much? There were also countless super experts, tens of millions of troops, and billions of citizens below. How much courage and strength did it take to build such a powerful army and country? When he thought of this, he couldn't wait to meet this mysterious person. Marshal Saint Ming Luo watched as Ming Yan Er left the hall. The kindness on her face became even stronger. It was as if she had seen her own granddaughter. A rare smile appeared on her face. I hope you sisters can help the young master, and I also hope that the young master can remove your restrictions. One day, you will be able to see your parents and return to the world that belongs to you. The smile on Marshal Saint Ming Luo's face kept changing. She muttered to herself as if she was in a daze. He looked into the void, thinking about something. Second brother, no matter how you died, Ming Luo will definitely destroy the Bai family. Yan Er has grown up. After this battle, I will bring Bing Er back. By clan, I'll be the first to destroy you. Marshal Saint Ming Luo's face revealed a solemn expression as if she was missing someone. As he finished speaking, his expression turned cold and a shocking aura erupted from his body. The entire hall was filled with an aura of destruction. Watercloud City was the capital of the Watercloud Nation. Now that it had been conquered by the Carefree Empire's army, it had become the encampment of the Carefree Empire's 30 million soldiers. Tens of thousands of experts were also settled in the army, waiting for the arrival of the battle. 5 days had passed, and it had been 5 days since they arrived at Raincloud City. The army had not advanced a single step, but the army of the Kingdom of Heaven's Roars did not have a single army. For this battle, the Kingdom of Heaven's Roars did not defend the city. Instead, they arranged for 20 million troops and countless experts to be stationed 100,000 miles away from the City of Heaven's Roars. This way, the battle would not affect the City of Heaven's Roars. Brother Lu, has your array Dao cultivation recovered? On this day, Marshal Saint Ming Luo favored Lu Haotian and the two of them discussed the progress of the battle. There were more than 30 high-level core personnel who were discussing the battle. These people were either Li Lingxian's most trusted people or the army's supreme generals and commanders. Sky Demon King and Marshal Saint Yunhao were here, as well as a few array masters. Marshal Saint Ming Luo invited Lu Haotian to discuss the war because she understood Lu Haotian's importance. She was also aware of Lu Haotian's position in front of Li Lingtian. He was definitely one of the top 10 most trusted figures. Their statuses were similar to his. However, Marshal Saint Ming Luo, Heavenly Monster King, and Marshal Saint Yunhao were the ones whom Li Lingtian trusted the most. Long De was the only one who had the highest status apart from Li Lingtian. Long De was willing to sacrifice his life for Li Lingtian. Everything was for Li Lingxian's sake. Long De was the first person Li Lingtian could trust. Although there were 30 million soldiers and countless powerhouses, they knew that the power of Lu Haotian, a Saint Array Master, was not something that a few 9th Heavenly Layer martial saints could compare to. If they really angered Lu Haotian, the 2 million strong army would be like ants in front of them. An array formation that could destroy the heavens and earth was something that no one could resist. It was still fine for super experts, but an army below the rank of a martial saint did not have the slightest ability to resist the array formation of an array master. They had already seen it a few times. Every time, it was earth-shattering. Hundreds of thousands of troops would disappear without a trace. Furthermore, he had also received orders that the main forces of this battle would be split into 2 groups. One would be the main force, while the other would be the array formation attacks. Li Lingtian must have given Lu Haotian some kind of heaven-defying array formation to pass down this order. With such an array formation, it would definitely reduce the pressure on the army. He was also curious to see what kind of array Li Lingtian had given Lu Haotian and how terrifying its power was. Thank you for your concern, Brother Ming Luo. Thanks to young master's guidance, my array Dao cultivation has already recovered completely. My current array Dao cultivation is much stronger than before. If I use the 9 heavens destruction array again, I won't be in such a sorry state. The others have almost recovered. However, we can't do anything for the next 2 days because our 2 sets of array formations are still being practiced. Lu Haotian said with a smile. The two of them had similar cultivation levels and were Li Lingxian's most trusted people. Furthermore, they did not interact much with each other in the past. Now that they were working together for Li Lingtian, they were naturally united. The friendship between them was also very good. After all, comrades were comrades who lived their lives. On the battlefield, comrades were the other half of one's life. Only unity could lead to victory. As a holy array master and the only holy array master in the army, he was responsible for the defense and attack of the battle. He had to communicate with Marshal Saint Ming Luo. That's good. Young master is currently in seclusion. I wonder if he will appear in this battle. Therefore, we can't rely on him. The young lord has already given the order for the two of us to join forces and jointly attack the kingdom of heaven's roars. At that time, I will properly witness the might of Brother Lu's array Dao. Marshal Saint Ming Luo was relieved when she heard that Lu Haoshan's array Dao cultivation had recovered. She looked excited. That's natural. If young master has to do it personally every time, us subordinates would be neglecting our duties. At that time, well, definitely let Brother Ming witness the power of our array Dao and let the army of heaven's roars capital city tremble in front of the array Dao. I wonder what Brother Ming plans to do. Lu Haotian revealed a bright smile. In front of his own people, he was completely unrestrained and could do whatever he wanted. In the end, he asked Marshal Saint Ming Luo. They trusted each other and knew that she would not betray Li Lingtian. Otherwise, he would not have asked about Marshal Saint Ming Luo's battle. After all, this was a battle between the 30 million soldiers and the kingdom of heaven's roars. The outcome was unpredictable. Marshal Saint Ming Luo, who was the commander-in-chief, controlled the entire situation. He shouldn't have asked, but there was no animosity between the two of them. They trusted each other, so there was nothing to hide. 30 million troops are attacking the capital city of heaven's roars. Although the strength of the army isn't much different from the kingdom of heaven's roars, the kingdom of heaven's roars has countless experts. Compared to the kingdom of heaven's roars, it's still very far off. Moreover, the young master has already secretly ordered us to be extremely careful in this war. There might be changes in this war. Otherwise, I will also station troops in Raincloud City. I just want to find a way to get the best of both worlds before taking action. Marshal Saint Ming Luo said earnestly. When they were still in 100 Spirit Capital City, the army would have to wait for 10 days to half a month before they could reorganize and set off. However, they received Li Lingxian's order to attack the Nanfeng Kingdom and Yuhan Kingdom with all their might. Furthermore, he had specially instructed them to be extremely careful. There might be changes to their lives along the way. Marshal Saint Ming Luo could not figure out what had caused Li Lingtian to be so cautious. There must be some terrifying existence in the three kingdoms. However, the two kingdoms did not put in the slightest effort to attack. They basically did not put up any resistance, and they did not discover any powerful and terrifying existences. As a result, his heart grew heavier because Li Lingtian would not make groundless accusations. Something that could make Li Lingtian take it seriously was no ordinary matter. Now that things had come to this, he also understood that all the armies and experts had gathered in the kingdom of heaven's roars. Moreover, there might be super experts in the kingdom of heaven's roars. Therefore, he had not made a move all this time and had instead stopped at Raincloud City. The army reorganized themselves and prepared to fight at any moment. The entire battlefield had been scouted by the Carefree Empire army, and there were no conspiracies. Chapter 807, Mysterious Expert, 1. But even so, they felt that something was wrong. Li Lingtian was a first firmament martial saint whose strength was comparable to a martial god. 2 martial god powerhouses had been killed by Li Lingtian. The 3 great kingdoms must have some tricks up their sleeves if they were to gather together to deal with Li Lingtian. If nothing could be seen from the army, it meant that there were super experts. Now, the Kingdom of Heaven's Roar's army of 20 million was facing the Freedom Empire's 30 million. They did not have the slightest advantage, and the super experts of the two armies were also almost the same. Thus, the battle was a battle of life and death. Putting aside his other schemes, as the commander of the three armies, he could not be careless. In such a battle, one had to use strange methods and tactics to defeat the opponent, and it had to be a complete victory. Otherwise, even if they won, it would be a tragic victory. I also feel that something is wrong. Although the strength of the Kingdom of Heaven's roars is powerful, it is still not enough to fight with the young lord. The Kingdom of Heaven's roars actually dares to fight with the young master. It must be because they have some confidence. The invisible threat is the greatest threat. The young master has passed down the array formation. We will try our best to comprehend the array formation in the shortest time possible. Hopefully, we can use the array formation to help the army. We can't do anything about other things. This time, we will use two formations. One is a destructive formation, and the other is a confinement formation. These formations were arranged by the young master, so we don't dare to use them casually this time. Moreover, everyone knows the strategy of our Xiaoyao Empire's war. The other party has also taken precautions against the formation path. After Lu Haotian heard Marshal Saint Ming Luo's words, he also felt that the situation was serious. No matter how he looked at it, the Kingdom of Heaven's roars had a conspiracy. It was just that he could not see it for the time being. Moreover, Lu Haotian had already guessed something from the array formation that Li Lingtian had passed down and everything that had happened in the Kingdom of Heaven's roars. However, he could not be sure. Then the army will wait for 2 days. When Brother Lu is ready, we will make our plans. I believe that the young lord will personally fight this time. Marshal Saint Ming Luo, Lu Haotian, the other experts, Marshal Saint Yunhao, and the others discussed for a while. They had no objections and decided to wait until they had comprehended the array Dao before taking action. The most important thing now was to defend and not let the Kingdom of Heaven's roars harass Tianshui City. After a discussion, they left. All the important figures lived together. Basically, they were all gathered together. This was also the center of the experts. This way, they would not have to worry about the other party assassinating the higher-ups of the army. Following that, the Xiaoyao dynasty army reorganized and prepared for a great battle. Lu Haoshan's subordinates also sped up their comprehension of the array formation. After they were familiar with the array formation, the battle would begin. Sir Hai, the Carefree Empire has reorganized the 100 Spirit Kingdom, the Nanfeng Kingdom, and the Yuhan Kingdom. They have an army of 30 million and countless experts. They have already arrived at Raincloud City. It's no different from an army approaching the city. I wonder how confident Sir Hai is. In the Imperial Palace of Heaven's Roar's capital city, hundreds of super powerhouses gathered together. Each of these powerhouses was at the 9th firmament of the Martial Saint Realm. Moreover, there were more than 10 false Martial God Realm experts. Their strength was incomparably terrifying. This was because these powerhouses were the most powerful powerhouses from the Southwind Kingdom, the Epsilon Kingdom, and the Kingdom of Heaven's Roars. They had all gathered here to defeat Li Lingshan's Carefree Empire. This was also the final battle. Either the Carefree dynasty was destroyed and Li Lingtian fell, or the 4 great kingdoms were completely destroyed. The 4 kingdoms had already reached this stage, and the 100 Spirit Kingdom was completely destroyed. The remaining 3 kingdoms naturally did not dare to destroy it, so they could only join forces to fight. The king of the Kingdom of Heaven's Roars, Qiao Yuanwu, had given up when he saw the kingdoms being unified by the Xiaoyao dynasty. However, he did not dare to speak loudly now, lest he offended the few super experts in front of him. Looking at the 4 black-robed experts below the hall, his expression was extremely ugly. Qiao Yuanwu, look at you. If we don't make a move, the Kingdom of Heaven's Roars will vanish into thin air. The arrival of the Carefree dynasty's army is exactly what we want to see. As long as the Carefree dynasty's army arrives at the capital city of Heaven's Roars, even if the Carefree dynasty is destroyed, Li Lingtian will vanish into thin air. When Li Lingtian and the Carefree dynasty are destroyed, this world will be yours. Are you doubting my methods? Hai Jiaming said calmly. His expression was calm and he was not afraid of Li Lingtian at all. As he finished his sentence, his eyes turned sharp as he stared at Xiao Yuanwu. The other three black-robed experts also revealed a terrifying aura. Immediately, the entire hall was filled with a destructive aura. Even if everyone present was a 9th heavenly layer martial saint, they could not withstand this destructive aura. Their faces revealed a shocked expression. Sir Hai, please calm down. Sir Hai, please calm down. Yes, I've filtered it. With Sir C's martial god cultivation base, the four of you will definitely be able to destroy Li Lingtian. By then, the Kingdom of Heaven's roars will be able to wipe out the Freedom Dynasty. Qiao Yuanwu's body trembled when he felt the sharp gaze. The pressure and aura of a martial god powerhouse was not something a mere martial saint could withstand at all. There were hundreds of martial saints present, but in front of the four black-robed experts, they were completely trash. That's right. Please calm down, Sir Hai. Sir Hai is a mighty martial god powerhouse. Li Lingtian is nothing in front of the four of you. With Sir Hai and the other three taking action, the Xiaoyao dynasty will definitely vanish. When the time comes, we will need the help of Pavilion Wanghai, Sir Baiyuntian, Sir Baiyunbian, and Sir Clearwater. That's right. Please calm down, sirs. All of a sudden, the experts in the hall trembled. If the four martial god experts were really angry, everyone here would disappear in the blink of an eye. There was a wolf in front and a tiger behind. Li Lingshan's Carefree dynasty was in Raincloud City. If they attacked, they would have no chance of winning. Now, there were still four martial god powerhouses here. Although they were helping the Heavens Roar's capital city, facing four martial god powerhouses, they all understood that even if they defeated the Carefree Empire, they would still fall into the hands of the four martial god powerhouses. They would not have a good life in the future. Are you worthy of me getting angry? Since I'm in a good mood this time, I can help you with the array formation. Other than that, you'll have to handle the rest on your own. Leave Li Lingtian to us. We're only working together to eliminate Li Lingtian. Although Li Lingtian is only a first firmament martial saint, he's not a simple character. He has something that we need. Otherwise, do you think I'd have nothing better to do? Remember, we will only help you once. You will have to do the rest on your own. Alright, you guys do as you see fit. Hai Jiaming's sharp eyes gradually disappeared as he spoke. His eyes were filled with disdain. When he mentioned Li Lingtian, his face revealed a deep murderous intent. After saying a few words, he turned around and walked out of the hall. The other three black-robed experts also turned around and left. After the four black-robed experts left, the destructive aura in the hall slowly disappeared. All the experts swayed, as if they could not stand steadily and were about to fall to the ground. Sigh, things have come to this. There's no turning back. We all know Li Lingshan's character. Either we're destroyed or Li Lingtian is destroyed. In the future, everyone should be more careful. We can't rely on them. Qiao Yuanwu sighed. His face was pale, and he looked as if he had aged several decades. He had originally planned to submit to the Carefree Empire. This way, he could also protect his position. Moreover, he might even have a chance in the future. However, he had never expected that four martial god experts would appear. In front of the martial god, he was simply an ant. At this point, it was impossible to turn back. Boom! 2 days later, a shocking war drum sounded in the originally quiet Raincloud City. The sound of the war drums shook the sky, and the entire Raincloud City heard it. When the war drums fell, the three armies gathered. All the experts and citizens of Raincloud City were watching from the top of the city wall. Seeing the might of the 30 million soldiers of the Carefree dynasty, their blood boiled. A moment later, the three armies gathered after the war drums sounded. Instantly, the 30 million soldiers formed a powerful square formation that stretched for hundreds of miles. Tens of thousands of super experts were gathered around these armies. A destructive aura soared into the sky, piercing through the clouds and reaching the 9 heavens. The space continuously trembled. Tong, tong, tong. Bang, bang, bang. The war drums became even more intense. The sound of the war drums resounded throughout the world, causing the blood of the army to boil. Roar! 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 At the same time, as the war drums fell, the 30 million soldiers shouted at the same time. The destructive sound waves seemed to tear the void apart. This was momentum, the true morale of an army. In front of this, even a 9th firmament martial saint felt insignificant. A martial saint powerhouse could only be destroyed in front of this momentum. Those who obey will prosper. Those who rebel will die. Sweep the Black Continent. Unify the world. Martial Saint Ming Luo stood on the huge war god and shouted with a powerful aura. Below, the 30 million soldiers also responded. At this moment, the earth and the sky changed color in front of the aura of the 30 million soldiers. The citizens and experts of Raincloud City finally understood what power was, what an army was, and what an aura was. This was power, this was an army, this was an aura. To pave a path for young Master Dis Empire, are you willing to follow me to conquer the world? Marshal Saint Ming Luo looked at the 30 million soldiers and asked loudly. As the commander-in-chief of the 3 armies, he naturally had the means to lead the army and also the means to raise the morale of the army. At this moment, he was the true commander of the 3 armies, the ruler of the 3 armies. Chapter 808, Enemies on a Narrow Road. Lamb willing to follow the commander-in-chief to conquer the world. Follow young Master Dis' footsteps and unify the world. The entire army shouted in unison, and their momentum soared into the sky like a whirlwind. His aura reached an extreme. All the experts and the army were boiling with blood. The hot blood of men was displayed at this moment. I give the order. The army will advance quickly and destroy the Heaven Roar's capital city. Marshal Saint Ming Luo said loudly and waved the flag in his hand. Immediately, the 30 million troops changed their direction and moved quickly toward the capital city of Heaven's Roars with the sound of the war drums. Instantly, the entire world trembled under the feet of the 30 million strong army. The experts and citizens of Raincloud City looked at the Carefree Dynasty's army with excitement. This was a true expert, a true army. At the same time, the experts of the Mystic Moon Empire and the other kingdoms also looked at the Carefree Empire's army from afar. They were extremely shocked. Was the free and unfettered dynasty really established 2 years ago? Such morale and strength, even if the kingdom had thousands of years of foundation, it might not have such an imposing manner. The aura of an army could not be cultivated over time. This required a powerful soul figure and faith. The Carefree Dynasty's army was made up of warriors. Warriors' belief was to become stronger and stronger. However, to become stronger, they needed pills. Li Lingtian was the divine martial continent's #1 holy alchemist, a godlike existence in the eyes of warriors. Ming Yan Er also followed Marshal Saint Ming Luo. She was extremely happy when she saw her third uncle's power. Naturally, he was extremely happy that his family could be so powerful. The more Marshal Saint Ming Luo acted like this, the more curious she was. What kind of expert could make her third uncle achieve such an achievement? Only when the master was stronger would his subordinates be stronger. A strong general had no weak soldiers. Third uncle was so powerful, so that mysterious figure should be even more domineering. Similarly, the powerhouses and secret agents from the various kingdoms and empires, as well as countless powerhouses who were busybodies, were also extremely curious. Although they had heard of Li Lingtian's reputation, not many people had seen him. Marshal Saint Ming Luo was so powerful now. He commanded 30 million troops and tens of thousands of experts. Moreover, he was only a fifth sky martial saint. The only way to control such a powerful force was to gain the trust of his master. To be able to train such a powerful subordinate, one could see how terrifying that mysterious and powerful figure was. Boom! 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 Bang! 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 War drums rumbled, and the sound of the army's footsteps echoed. The entire world trembled. The sound of the war drums shook the world and struck the hearts of the experts, stirring up the blood of the army and experts. The army charged towards the royal city of heaven's roars like a whirlwind. The nine-headed war god floated like 9 huge white clouds. Don't just look at the war god. Each war god could take away tens of thousands of powerhouses and armies. The air was mercilessly torn apart, and wherever the army passed, it was like a whirlwind. Boom! In 3 hours, the 30 million strong army had already arrived 100,000 miles away from the roaring Sky King city. The army had already settled down. Although a 3-hour march was nothing to an army formed by experts, the army had a rule that no war was allowed after the march. Moreover, when marching, one's aura would be consumed. Only after recuperating and accumulating morale would the real battle begin. The earth-shattering explosion jolted the Heaven Roar's capital city's army awake. Heaven Roar's capital city's army also stopped at 100,000 miles away, waiting for the Carefree Dynasty's army. This kind of confrontation was completely a destructive war, a war that would not stop until one of them died. Brother Lu, you prepare first. We have to use an array formation in this place to wipe out the morale of the Heaven Roar's capital city's army. Marshal Saint Ming Luo stood on the war god and looked at the 20 million soldiers in the distance. These 20 million soldiers belonged to the capital city of Heaven's Roars. If they wanted to enter the capital city of Heaven's Roars, it would be a battle to the death. An army of 30 million against an army of 20 million. Even if they managed to defeat the other party, their side would lose millions or even tens of millions. Once the Xiaoyao dynasty destroyed so many of their armies, their morale would be completely gone. Therefore, Marshal Saint Ming Luo didn't want to be frustrated here. The only way was to use an array. Alright, Brother Ming has the same thoughts as me. Leave the first vanguard to us. Brother Ming, order all the fire attribute soldiers and experts in the army to use the fire attribute to block. When the time comes, we will use the icebound 10,000 miles. Lu Haotian nodded and immediately agreed. He then asked Marshal Saint Ming Luo to pass down the order for all the soldiers to join hands and cast the fire element to resist the formation. After saying that, he left and went to another war god. Instantly, the 3 war gods formed a 3-pronged formation. All of them were array masters and super experts. These super experts naturally protected the war god and the array masters. Furthermore, Li Lingtian had previously noticed that the array master would be easily destroyed without protection. Hence, he had instructed the array master to cast an array on the war god. With the war god's protection, there would not be a situation where the war god was defenseless. Give the order. All soldiers with fire attributes, prepare for fire attributes. Ice attribute experts will attack while fire attribute experts will defend. Marshal Saint Ming Luo watched Lu Haotian leave and quickly gave the order for all the experts to be prepared for a great battle. Boom! At this moment, a shocking spiritual energy appeared on the war god. The spiritual energy soared into the sky. At the same time that this shocking spiritual energy appeared, the other 2 war gods also released shocking spiritual energy. The shocking spiritual energy kept attacking the void, as if it wanted to destroy the void. Very soon, all the array masters on the war god cast their spells. The appearance of the spells made the 3 streams of spiritual energy in the air even more powerful. Gradually, the 3 war gods separated, and the area covered by spiritual energy expanded. This space began to tremble. The sound shook the sky, immediately making the army of the Heaven Roar's capital city on the opposite side horrified. Pay attention. use the defensive formation to block the opponent's formation attack. Heaven Roar's capital city's army commander, Bai Tianjiao, was a ninth firmament martial saint super powerhouse. When Bai Tianjiao saw the army of the Xiaoyao dynasty arrive and began to use array attacks without any warning, he was stunned. He did not dare to hesitate anymore and ordered the array masters of the army to set up a defensive array. Immediately, an old man in his 50s appeared in the army. He had an excited expression on his face, but this excited expression was also filled with hatred. He did not recognize the other experts, but Lu Haotian knew this old man. He had seen him in Liberty Sacred City last time and had even fought him once in the array Dao. Lu Haotian, the two of you joined forces last time. Now that Wu Jizi isn't here, let's see how you die this time. Wu Tian Destruction Formation. Yao Tian shouted loudly. His voice spread throughout the space. The army of Xiaoyao dynasty and the army of Xiao Tian King City heard it. Similarly, Lu Haotian also heard this voice. His expression was extremely calm, and behind this calmness was excitement. Last time, when he teamed up with Wu Jizi, he almost destroyed Yao Tian. He didn't expect that Yao Tian was still fine. Now that they had encountered each other, they were enemies on a narrow road. Ha, I didn't kill you last time. This time, even if you have to go to heaven or earth, I will destroy you here and let you see what the array Dao is. Lu Haotian was shocked and felt lucky. The last time he met Yao Tian, the two of them had to work together to defeat him. Now, he did not expect Yao Tian to appear here. It seemed that Yao Tian was here specifically to take revenge on him. Fortunately, the array Dao that the young master had imparted to him was specifically targeted at Yao Tian. After Lu Haotian was injured, he asked for advice on how to deal with Yao Tian. After understanding Yaoshan's personality and array Dao cultivation, Li Lingtian learned everything about Yaoshan's past and provided him with a way to crack and kill him. After saying that, he cast the spell even faster. He was excited and looking forward to it. If he really killed Yao Tian here, it would be a help to the Xiaoyao dynasty. After all, killing Yao Tian would directly solve this problem. Boom! Boom! In the sky, two shocking array formations quickly formed. Yao Tian was still using the Wu Tian destruction formation that he had used the last time. He was defeated by the two holy array masters last time. Now, he was unwilling and wanted to use this formation to destroy his opponent. This way, he could wipe out the hatred in his heart. Moreover, in his opinion, a holy array master was not his match at all. Naturally, he was not afraid of Lu Haotian at all. There were more than 50 million troops on both sides, and countless super experts, as well as countless experts and spies who were watching the battle, were all looking at these two shocking arrays. Now, before the final battle of the army, the pinnacle battle of array formation had begun. As long as either side failed, the army would suffer a devastating blow, and the array masters would also be destroyed. Attention, use the Heavenly Wind Divine Array. Transfer, freeze 10,000 miles. Heaven and Earth Shift, Star Shift. Lu Haoshan's expression was serious, and the corners of his mouth had a cruel expression. The corners of his mouth moved continuously, and his voice was very soft. Only the array master on the three-headed war god could hear him clearly. Hearing Lu Haoshan's voice, all the array masters kept changing their hand seals. The array kept changing. The three destructive spiritual chi in the air kept fusing, and the space was quickly torn apart. Marshal Saint Ming Luo didn't know array Dao, but when she saw the holy array masters from both sides displaying their strongest array Dao, she was shocked and her heart was in her throat. If Lu Haotian failed, all the array masters would be injured or even killed, and the 30 million troops would also suffer a destructive blow. All of a sudden, all the troops and experts fell silent. Countless experts who were watching the battle also retreated far away, afraid of being caught in the fish pond. Boom! Boom! At this moment, two arrays had already appeared, forming a destructive cyclone that entered the void. Looking at the two destructive whirlpools, all the experts and the army were stunned. Their eyes were filled with fear, as if they had seen the end of the world. Chapter 809, Shifting Stars, 1. The power of the Wutian destruction formation was focused on destruction. At this moment, the lawless destruction formation had reached its limit. The formation formed a cyclone that was 10 miles in size in the air, tearing the space apart. All the experts and the army trembled when they saw this destructive array. Only now did they understand the power of the array. Icebound 10,000 mile. Lu Haotian and the others stood on the war god. The three destructive spiritual energies had completely fused together, forming a destructive cyclone that was 10 miles wide. At this moment, all the powerhouses and the army felt a chill. The scorching air suddenly turned cold. All the experts and the army began to tremble. However, on the side of the Freedom Dynasty, the situation changed in an instant. In the army, countless experts and soldiers who cultivated fire elemental cultivation techniques used fire elemental cultivation techniques to cover the soldiers around them. With the fire elemental cultivation techniques to resist, the icy aura instantly disappeared. The Xiaoyao Empire had long prepared for this, so they were naturally not worried about the cold air being destroyed. Marshal Saint Ming Luo looked at the Xiaoyao dynasty's army that was using fire elemental cultivation techniques. She didn't panic at all and protected her comrades. She smiled faintly when she saw this. Then, he looked at Lu Haotian. When he looked at Lu Haotian, his expression became puzzled. This was because the opponent had cast the Forgotten Heaven Destruction formation, but Lu Haotian had only cast the formation that froze thousands of miles. The destructive cyclone had turned into an icy pillar of light. Such a formation had no defense at all, and its attack was not strong either. Naturally, it was not a match for the Forgotten Heaven Destruction formation. Boom! Lu Haoshan's face revealed a confident expression, and his eyes were filled with madness. With a tap of his hand, a 10-mile-wide array formation cyclone in the air blasted towards the army of the Heavens Roar's capital city. The Heavenly Wind Divine Array was an auxiliary array formation that could accelerate. At this moment, the power of the Heavenly Wind Divine Array erupted. In an instant, a cold light pillar that froze thousands of miles landed on the army of the Heavens Roar's capital city. This speed had completely surpassed the imaginations of all the armies and experts. Seeing this situation, Yaoshan's face became furious. He never thought that the other party would use this array and even accelerate it. Now, it was too late to use the Wutian destruction array to break the icebound 1,000-mile. They could only watch helplessly as the icebound 1,000-mile array bombarded the army of the Heaven Roar's capital city. Boom! A shocking explosion sounded out as the 10-mile-wide light pillar exploded. It was like a destructive bomb that destroyed the army of 20 million soldiers. They were already unprepared, and countless experts and armies were frozen. They didn't have the mood or energy to defend at all. Now that they were bombarded by this destructive array formation, they were instantly destroyed. The pillar of light that covered tens of thousands of miles of ice exploded with a destructive halo. Wherever the halo passed, all the experts and armies were imprisoned or even destroyed. The army within 1,000 miles was imprisoned and killed. Even the air was lifeless. When Yao Tian saw this situation, he almost went berserk, but it was impossible to salvage the situation now. His expression turned cruel. He pointed with one hand and the destructive lawless destruction formation blasted towards Freedom King. The space around them started to tremble. The experts of the Carefree Empire were all shocked. The experts who were watching the battle also started to tremble. This battle had completely exceeded their imaginations. Heaven and earth change, stars shift. Lu Haoshan's face was filled with excitement and madness when he saw the lawless destruction formation in the sky. At the same time, he looked at all the array masters. Each array master took out a wisp of blood essence. The blood essence was refined by a spell and turned into a blood curtain. With the appearance of the blood veil, the primeval essence and cultivation of all the array masters recovered rapidly. Instantly, a strange aura emanated from every array master. This aura had fused with heaven and earth. At this moment, the Wutian destruction formation had already arrived above the 30 million soldiers of the Xiaoyao dynasty. Just as the 30 million soldiers were about to be destroyed, a strange power appeared in the sky. Yao Tian also felt this strange power, and his eyes revealed a look of horror. The power of the stars. It's the power of the stars, the power of the stars of a divine array master. Yao Tian cried out in alarm. He looked at the void with a horrified expression, as if he had seen a ghost. At this moment, he was completely stunned by the force in the air. He had never thought that he would actually see the power of the stars that only a divine array master could display in this place. The power of the stars was not something that a martial artist or a holy array master could imagine. In front of the young master, you are forever just an ant. Do you know why you failed? Do you know who defeated you? Your failure is because you are ignorant and self-righteous. You were defeated by the young master. The young master has long understood your array Dao. In front of the young master, you have no right to talk about array Dao at all. Lu Haotian looked at Yaoshan's expression and felt extremely pleased. It was as if he had defeated Yao Tian himself. In fact, he had defeated Yao Tian, but he had received Li Lingshan's guidance. As soon as he finished speaking, he pointed with his hand, and the mysterious power in the air strangely imprisoned the heavenless destruction formation. With a wave of his hand, the heavenless destruction formation ruthlessly bombarded the army of the Roaring Sky King City. Seeing this strange change, the Xiaoyao Empire army cheered in shock. Countless experts who were watching the battle were also shocked. They did not expect the Xiaoyao dynasty to have such a terrifying array that could reach the power of the shifting stars. Moreover, based on Lu Haoshan's words, Li Lingtian was the one who defeated Yao Tian. In that case, Li Lingtian was a terrifying divine array master. A divine array master, the #1 alchemy saint, a super martial saint powerhouse comparable to a martial god. Who else was a match for such a terrifying monster? Boom! Heaven and earth trembled in front of this destructive explosion. The heavens were also furious and sent down terrifying heavenly might. The power of the 10,000 miles of ice had frozen and destroyed an area within 1,000 miles of the 20 million soldiers. It was already miserable enough, but the Wutian destruction formation added fuel to the fire. The destructive attack had completely turned the area within 1,000 miles into nothingness. This time, even a 9th heavenly layer martial saint expert would perish and turn into nothingness. An army of 8 million soldiers was destroyed in front of the two formations. 8 million, an army of 8 million, vanished like smoke. Kill them. Martial Saint Ming Luo looked at this ending and was shocked. She looked at Lu Haotian with a strong gaze and smiled. With a wave of the flag in his hand, the 30 million soldiers charged out like a tidal wave. Kill them. Kill them. Those who obey will prosper, and those who rebel will die. Sweep the Black Continent and unify the world. Instantly, a heaven-shaking battle cry rang out. The sound reverberated through the heavens and earth, and a destructive killing intent soared into the sky. A bloody aura filled the space, and a bloody light shot into the sky. Boom! 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 For a moment, the war god's light projection continued to shoot out. The light projection cut through the void and entered the army of the royal city of Heaven's Roars. The war god's power was enough to destroy a martial saint powerhouse. It was even more fatal to the army. Every light shadow destroyed a large portion of the army. When the Carefree Dynasty's army entered the army of the King of Heaven's Roars, the army of the King of Heaven's Roars had already collapsed. Bai Yunfei, get out here. At this moment, Martial Saint Ming Luo called Heavenly Monster King and Martial Saint Yunhao over. Lu Haotian also came over. After giving some instructions, he shook his body and took off his armor as he shouted at the army in the distance. Encountering his enemy, the battle had already reached its climax. Destroying the enemy's army was not a problem. Now, it was time to deal with his enemy. If this enemy was killed by another expert, he would regret it for the rest of his life. With Marshal Saint Yunhao and the others here, he wasn't worried at all. As soon as he finished speaking, he looked at Ming Yen Air beside him and quickly flew into the distance. Ming Luo, since you're courting death today, I kill you first. Bai Yunfei watched as the army of the royal city of Heaven's Roars was destroyed in front of the two formations. Yao Tian was also the center of destruction in the power of the stars. He was completely defenseless and finally disappeared into thin air. Now, he understood how powerful the Carefree dynasty was. However, he did not intend to let go of the Ming family's opponent. It was a piece of cake for a 7th Heaven Martial Saint to kill a 5th Heaven Martial Saint as the #1 genius of the Water Cloud Nation. After he finished speaking, his figure flashed and he started fighting Martial Saint Ming Luo. Boom! 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 The entire space exploded continuously. As the experts fought, the space shattered inch by inch like a broken mirror. The battle between Marshal Saint Ming Luo and Bai Yunfei became the focus of countless experts. However, there were no experts who joined the battle. Even the experts of the Xiaoyao dynasty did not help Marshal Saint Ming Luo. There were only 3 9th heavenly level martial saints who kept an eye on the battle between the two of them. The 3 9th heavenly level martial saints held the fort for Marshal Saint Ming Luo. They understood that this was Marshal Saint Ming Luo's personal enemy. If anyone stepped forward to help, Marshal Saint Ming Luo would not only not be grateful, but would even blame them. Marshal Saint Ming Luo was at a disadvantage when she fought against the #1 genius of the Water Cloud Nation, who was at the 7th heaven of the Martial Saint realm. However, she was fighting with her life on the line. She was going to die together with Bai Yunfei, which made Bai Yunfei feel fearful. For a moment, he was defending more than he was attacking, and he was constantly retreating. This situation immediately shocked countless experts. Like master, like subordinates. The 5th Heaven Martial Saint was actually suppressing the #1 genius of the 7th Heaven Martial Saint. Between heaven and earth, a great battle did not stop. But the army of the Heaven's Roar's capital city was already utterly defeated, retreating step by step. In a moment's time, they had already retreated hundreds of miles. After the destruction of the array formation, the army of the Heaven's Roar's royal city had lost all will to fight, let alone morale. Now, the army only wanted to escape without any resistance. The army of the free and unfettered dynasty was like a tiger entering a flock of sheep. The battle was one-sided. There are still 2 chapters to be updated at noon. Please give me monthly votes and recommendation tickets. Chapter 8-10, Bai Yunfei's Fall. Kill, kill. The Carefree Empire's army was incomparably excited when they saw the collapse of the Heaven Roar's Imperial City's army. Their shouts shook the sky. This momentum became the point of collapse for the Roaring Sky King City's army. Instantly, the remaining 10 million soldiers completely collapsed and quickly fled towards the Roaring Sky Emperor City. The powerhouses and secret agents from the various kingdoms who were watching the battle from afar were shocked beyond words. They were already feeling fear in their hearts. Li Lingtian was going to conquer the world, and it was inevitable that he would have to face such an army in the future. For a moment, the experts and secret agents of the various kingdoms already had an idea. The strength of the Carefree Empire was too terrifying. 3 destruction stances, Starfire Prairie. Cold Moon Starfatal Blow. The army of the Xiaoyao dynasty took advantage of the situation to pursue and quickly pressed towards the capital of Heaven's Roars. Bai Yunfei and Marshal Saint Ming Luo followed the army and attacked. Marshal Saint Ming Luo had been suppressing Bai Yunfei's attacks with a crazed expression. As time passed, Marshal Saint Ming Luo's true essence was gradually exhausted, and her power was not as strong as before. With the difference in realms, a fifth heaven martial saint was no match for the number one genius of the seventh heaven martial saint. However, at this moment, Martial Saint Ming Luo's expression was resolute. After a roar, she circulated all the vital essence in her body and executed the 3 destruction styles. The last style of the 3 destruction styles was sparks of fire. The entire sky was filled with destructive flames. A blazing fire that could burn the world burst out at this moment. The destructive flames bombarded Bai Yunfei. Wherever the flames passed, the space was pierced. At the same time, Bai Yunfei didn't dare to be careless when he saw Martial Saint Ming Luo using her last move. He circulated his genuine vitality and the space was torn apart. A strange aura burst out beside him. When this strange aura appeared, the destructive aura in the world gathered quickly. In the blink of an eye, he waved his hand and a starlight shot toward Martial Saint Ming Luo. The starlight ignored the distance between them. It pierced through the flames and space and arrived in front of Martial Saint Ming Luo in an instant. Bai Yunfei revealed a cruel expression as if he had seen Martial Saint Ming Luo's death. Divine heaven-splitting shield. Bang! Pfft! Martial Saint Ming Luo's expression changed when he saw the starlight coming at him. He activated his soul consciousness and cast the divine heaven-splitting shield. Instantly, the divine heaven-splitting shield protected him completely. However, the power of the starlight was beyond the imagination of all the experts. The starlight passed through the pseudo-divine weapon, the divine heaven-splitting shield, and struck Martial Saint Ming Luo. Martial Saint Ming Luo's expression was extremely unsightly. Her body fell rapidly and she was forced to float in the air. There was blood on the corner of his mouth and his eyes were unfocused. However, when he saw blazing fire surrounding Bai Yunfei, he revealed a strange smile. Bai Yunfei, you didn't kill me 10 years ago. Today, you will die in my hands. The number one genius of Raincloud Nation. Ha, just a piece of trash. Martial Saint Ming Luo shouted loudly. Blood kept flowing out of the corner of her mouth, and her expression became crazy. All the experts were puzzled. They thought that Martial Saint Ming Luo had gone mad. Although the flame was terrifying, it could not destroy Bai Yunfei, the number one genius of the seventh heaven. Did Martial Saint Ming Luo say that because she was so angry? I've already tried to start a prairie with a mere spark. Even the number one expert of the Ming family can't do anything to me, let alone you. Ming Luo, you're despicable, you're despicable. Bai Yunfei looked at Martial Saint Ming Luo. Although she wasn't destroyed by the cold moon heart, she was severely injured. She wouldn't be able to recover in a short time. Even if Blazing Spark was powerful, it was nothing to him, a seventh sky martial saint. He circulated his true essence to resist the attack of the flames while speaking loudly to Martial Saint Ming Luo. Seeing the countless experts watching the battle, he felt great. At this moment, he wanted the experts of the world to see his strength. However, at this moment, his expression changed drastically as he exclaimed in surprise. Martial Saint Ming Luo cultivated the fire element, which was also the pure explosive flame. However, there was a strange ice flame in the flames. Terrifying and destructive ice flames. This ice flame definitely did not belong to Martial Saint Ming Luo. It was just borrowed because it was impossible for experts who cultivated fire to come into contact with such terrifying ice flames. By the time he realized it, the icy frost flame had already entered his body. The destructive power of the icy frost flame continued to destroy his meridians and dantian. At the same time, the true essence in his dantian was solidified, and his entire body was corroded. Seeing this situation, he immediately understood that he had been tricked. He cursed loudly, completely disregarding his carefree image just now. All of a sudden, all the experts were curious and shocked, wondering what was going on with Bai Yunfei. However, very soon, some experts noticed that something was wrong. They also saw the problem in the flames. When they saw this problem, they were all extremely shocked. Ah! Bai Yunfei kept rolling in the flames. His body was burned by the flames. In the blink of an eye, he turned into ashes and disappeared in the air. Puchi. Marshal Saint Ming Luo looked at Bai Yunfei's death and smiled. She couldn't hold on any longer and fell down quickly. At this moment, Marshal Saint Yunhao's figure flashed and caught Marshal Saint Ming Luo, quickly sending her to the war god. Take good care of your third uncle. He needs to heal now. Marshal Saint Yunhao left the war god after she finished speaking. The battle was still going on. Marshal Saint Ming Luo was injured, so he had to take over her authority. He couldn't let anything happen to the battle. The 30 million army chased all the way. In half an hour's time, the 30 million army had already arrived in front of the Heavens Roar's capital city. At this time, the Heavens Roar's capital city's army only had less than 10 million left. In a short hour's time, the Heavens Roar's capital city's army had lost more than half. Reorganize! Marshal Saint Yunhao shouted. The 30 million soldiers stopped chasing and quickly reorganized themselves. The first round was passed, and the army arrived at the city of Heavens Roars in a state of complete victory. They had destroyed countless powerhouses and armies. However, at this time, when the army arrived at the city of Heavens Roars, it was the real beginning of the war. The army reorganized and attacked the city of Heavens Roars with their strongest aura and state, destroying the experts of the city of Heavens Roars and taking it down. Boom! Bang! The war drums sounded, and the army reorganized. The black mass of the army stretched for thousands of miles. An earth-shattering aura tore through the void, and the entire sky became gloomy. The atmosphere was extremely oppressive. Although there were deaths and destruction in an army of 30 million, these losses were insignificant to the entire army. The earth trembled in front of the destructive army. The sound of the war drums shook the hearts of the experts and the army, and their blood boiled. Countless experts gathered in the capital city of Heavens Roars. Looking at the carefree dynasty's army and then looking at their own army, the difference was like the difference between heaven and earth. Roaring Heavenly King Qing Jiao Yuanwu, come out and talk to me. Marshal Saint Yunhao stood on the war god and shouted at the royal city of Heavens Roars. His aura soared and his eyes flashed. Yes. Yes. The soldiers of the three armies formed a grand array, sending out a powerful aura toward the Heavens Roar's imperial city as if they were demonstrating their might. Whether it was an expert or an army, their aura could make their opponents tremble. The victory of their aura would give them the advantage of victory. You're not worthy. Call Li Lingtian out. Qiao Yuanwu stood up and shouted. At this moment, he had already thrown caution to the wind. Li Lingtian had yet to show up during the battle. Everyone suspected that he was cultivating. If that was the case, this was an opportunity to wipe out the carefree dynasty. Heavens Roar's capital city, those who obey will prosper, and those who rebel will die. Marshal Saint Yunhao had a faint smile on his face. Even though Qiao Yuanwu wanted Li Lingtian to speak, he had done so. He was too obedient. However, Li Lingtian was not around at this moment. The battle would depend on his words and actions. Those who obey will prosper, and those who rebel will die. Those who obey will prosper, and those who rebel will die. Those who obey will prosper, and those who rebel will die. The 30 million troops shouted in unison. Their aura shook the void, causing the experts and army of the Heavens Roar's capital city to tremble. If you want to fight, then fight. Wait until you destroy my Heavens Roar's capital city's city. Attack! Qiao Yuanwu was emboldened when he saw that Li Lingtian did not come out. The expression on his face became natural as he spoke loudly. At the end of his sentence, he waved his hand and countless attacks passed through the formation and ruthlessly bombarded the Xiaoyao Empire army. Tens of thousands of destructive attacks bombarded the Xiaoyao dynasty army like meteors. Instantly, the world trembled in front of these attacks. War God, cover me. Attack! Brother Lu, it's up to you now. Marshal Saint Yunhao was furious when he saw the other party attack first. However, he remained calm. Waving the flag in his hand, the war god's attack also burst out rapidly. Instantly, thousands of light shadows attacked the city of Heaven's Roars. The power of the war god was enough to destroy the world. With the war god's light projection retaliating, the attack from the city of Heaven's Roars was also blocked. After blocking the attack of the Heaven's Roars imperial city, the experts of the free and unfettered empire also executed destructive attacks, constantly bombarding the array formation. At this moment, Lu Haotian also began to take action. Although Lu Haoshan's status wasn't as high as Marshal Saint Ming Luo and Marshal Saint Yunhao, his current strength had made him one of the sole figures of the army. This was because everyone in the army had witnessed the terror of array masters. Alright. Lu Haotian nodded. His figure flashed and he arrived on the other three war gods. Instantly, the three-headed war god let out a blinding light. A shocking light soared into the sky. This light attracted the gazes of countless experts. All the experts and the expert army of the Heaven's Roars capital city were shocked by this light. 3 rays of light shot into the 9 heavens, and the heavens trembled. Chapter 8:11, Restriction Array Divine Pearl, 1. Ancient Divine Formation, Metal Mystic Light Formation. Lu Haotian shouted loudly as he continuously cast the spell seals in his hands. At the same time, more than 200 array masters also cast the spell seals. Every array master had an excited look on their faces. This was the first time they had used an ancient divine array together, so they were naturally excited. They also wanted to see the power of the ancient divine array. At the same time, countless experts watching the battle, including experts from the Heaven's Roars capital city and the Carefree Empire, were all shocked. The power of the ancient divine array was heaven-defying and powerful. No one in Xianzhou had ever used it, nor had they seen an ancient divine array. However, it was actually used by an array master of the Xiaoyao dynasty. Rumble. Rumble. The ancient divine array had yet to form, but a terrifying explosion sounded in the air, and the space trembled. Even a Marshal Saint Powerhouse felt his heart tremble at this power. He left far away from the range of the battle. Although the ancient divine array is powerful, wanting to break through my Heaven's Roars capital city's defense, your Carefree Empire is still unable to do it. Restriction Array Divine Pearl. Xiao Yuanwu looked at the terrifying ancient divine array with a horrified expression. However, his expression gradually calmed down, and a smile appeared on his face. He stretched out his hand, and a fist-sized pearl appeared in his hand. A dazzling and mysterious light burst out from the pearl. The appearance of the mysterious light instantly lit up the city. The defensive formation trembled in front of this light. Crash! In a moment's effort, Heaven Roars capital city's defense grand array actually shattered. The entire Heaven's Roars capital city was exposed to the air. However, at this moment, the pearl in Xiao Yuan's hand became even more dazzling. The light illuminated the sky. Restriction Array Divine Pearl. Could it be a forbidden array divine pearl left behind from ancient times? The formation restricting divine pearl can restrict any formation. It's also the nemesis of formation's path. I didn't expect that Heaven's Roars capital city actually has such a restriction array divine bead. Looks like Heaven's Roars capital city has long been prepared. Instantly, countless experts and armies cried out in surprise. The army of the Xiaoyao dynasty was also shocked. If this restriction array divine array was really so powerful, the Xiaoyao dynasty's array would not be able to break through the defense of the Heaven's Roars capital city. Such a big battle would not have been fought at all. Rumble. Rumble. The war god's attack and the attacks of countless powerhouses were all blocked by the light. The attacks disappeared without a trace. Destroy. At this moment, Lu Haoshan's ancient divine array had also been completed. Looking at the other party's forbidden array divine pearl, he felt a sense of foreboding. However, it was impossible to stop now. If he stopped, he would be injured and the 200 array Tao masters would suffer a backlash. Moreover, the carefree empire could forget about breaking the array formation. The army would suffer a setback here. Thinking of this, determination flashed in his eyes. With a tap of his hand, the ancient divine formation, the golden mystic light formation, was unleashed. Instantly, the lights on the 3 war gods merged together, forming a golden light that was 10 miles in size. The golden light was like a golden eye that directly bombarded heaven's roar's capital city. 2 dazzling lights appeared in the sky. The light of the ancient divine array collided with the light of the forbidden array divine pearl, and an explosion sounded in the air. Boom! Boom! The light of the divine array and the light of the divine bead continuously collided. The sky was torn apart and the earth trembled. Countless experts and armies stopped at this moment and watched as attack and defense competed with each other. Boom! Puff! In the blink of an eye, the light of the ancient divine array and the light of the divine bead collided for thousands of times. However, the light of the ancient divine array became weaker and weaker. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that the ancient divine array could not break the light of the divine bead. At this moment, Lu Haotian spat out a mouthful of blood. The other array masters also spat out a mouthful of blood. The golden mystic light formation disappeared, and the world fell silent. At the same time, the light from the forbidden formation god bead in Xiao Yuanhua's hand disappeared as well. He had an excited smile on his face. He did not expect this bead to be able to resist the array of the Xiaoyao dynasty, and it was an ancient divine array. Ha! Didn't the free and unfettered empire want to attack my kingdom of heaven's roars? If this is all you have, I think the free and unfettered empire should submit to the kingdom of heaven's roars. Call Li Lingtian out and submit to the kingdom of heaven's roars. The kingdom of heaven's roars can give him a kingdom. Xiao Yuanwu said loudly with a smile on his face. At the same time, the experts and army above the heavens roars capital city also laughed loudly. The army and powerhouses from the carefree empire were enraged. They were courting death by insulting Li Lingtian. However, they could not break into the enemy's city and could only watch as the enemy mocked them. Is that so? Do you want me to submit to the kingdom of heaven's roars? At this moment, an ethereal voice sounded in the air. The voice seemed to be half from outside the 9 heavens. Countless experts did not feel anything, but when this voice reached the experts and army of the Xiaoyao Empire, it immediately caused a shocking uproar. Young Master, Young Master. Young Master D, Young Master D. Young Master D is here, Young Master D is here. The experts and the army of the Xiaoyao dynasty were familiar with this voice. In their eyes, this voice was like an oracle. As long as Li Lingtian was around, he would be invincible. There were no formations or powerhouses that could stop him. Appearing at this critical moment, it was simply a piece of cake for the Xiaoyao dynasty to destroy the cities of the heavens roar's capital city. Li Lingtian is here. The heaven-breaking pavilion is here. The #1 divine alchemist of the divine martial continent. Li Lingtian is really here. I wonder what the battle will be like. I wonder if Li Lingtian has any way to break this forbidden array divine pearl. All the powerhouses, including the powerhouses from the various kingdoms and the powerhouses from the capital city of heaven's roars, were shocked when they heard Li Lingxian's arrival. Li Lingxian's name alone was enough to shake the entire Xianzhou. Instantly, everyone listened to the battle and looked at the void. 10,000 miles away, a silver dot of light shot over. In the blink of an eye, this silver dot of light turned into a huge war god. On the war god, a white-robed young man was standing steadily on it. His aura was elegant, and he looked extremely cool. Boom! As the rumbling sound faded, the war god arrived above the carefree dynasty's army. Young Master. Young Master D. Instantly, the 30 million soldiers and tens of thousands of experts half-knelt. The army within 1,000 miles half-knelt. Every soldier and expert had a look of respect and worship on their faces. There was no hint of dissatisfaction. Upon seeing this scene, the experts of the various kingdoms and the experts of the City of Heaven's Roars were all incomparably shocked. This was that powerful figure. What kind of boldness and charm was this? He actually made the people and subordinates below him so respectful. Young master. Marshal Saint Yunhao and the others came to Li Lingshan's side after he waved for them to stand up and bowed respectfully once again. Yes. It's already very rare for you to be able to control this ancient divine array. The restriction array God Pearl is the bane of array masters. It's normal that you can't break it. Li Lingshan's expression was calm as he swept his gaze across Marshal Saint Yunhao and the others. Finally, his gaze landed on Lu Haotian as he spoke indifferently. This subordinate will definitely work hard and not let down young master's teachings. Lu Haotian said gratefully. He was more than happy that Li Lingtian could forgive him. After bowing respectfully, he took a step back, knowing that Li Lingtian had other things to do. How is Ming Luo? Li Lingtian completely ignored the entire battlefield. A faint aura emanated from his body, devoid of any killing intent or ruthlessness. His entire being was one with the world. Facing this battlefield of tens of millions of soldiers was like being in a backyard. He looked at Marshal Saint Yunhao and asked. Now that Marshal Saint Yunhao was controlling the flag, it meant that Marshal Saint Ming Luo was injured or something else happened. Ming Luo met Bai Yunfei and was injured after killing him. Marshal Saint Yunhao replied respectfully and briefly explained Marshal Saint Ming Luo's situation. Naturally, he knew that Li Lingtian knew about Marshal Saint Ming Luo. Alright, leave this place to me. Li Lingtian nodded as his gaze slowly shifted. He looked at all the armies and experts. Wherever his gaze passed, all the armies and experts lowered their heads. In the face of this reputation and mysterious aura, no expert could match his gaze. Qiao Yuanwu, right? Li Lingtian looked at the capital city of Heaven's Roars. He left the war god and walked toward the capital city with void steps. He stopped when he was within 10 miles of the capital city and looked at Xiao Yuanwu as he spoke calmly. His tone was calm and his face was calm. However, when he mentioned Xiao Yuanwu, his tone was a little cold, as if he was examining Xiao Yuanwu. I am Xiao Yuanwu. Xiao Yuanwu's heart skipped a beat as he quickly answered. However, he felt humiliated after he answered. The king of the kingdom was behaving like an obedient baby in front of Li Lingtian. How embarrassing was this in front of the world's army and experts? However, he could not afford to regret it now. He could not control himself in front of Li Lingtian. When the experts and armies saw Qiao Yuanwu's expression, they thought of his arrogant appearance at the beginning. Countless experts felt extremely uncomfortable. They wanted to laugh, but they didn't dare to. They could only hold it in. If you want to laugh, laugh. Li Lingtian turned around and looked at the army, powerhouses, and the spectating powerhouses. He then uttered a statement that made everyone break down. However, as soon as Li Lingshan's voice fell, the entire world burst into laughter. This situation made Xiao Yuanwu want to commit suicide. I'm already here. The Heaven's Roar's capital city was destroyed because of you. Li Lingtian ignored all the powerhouses' laughter as he stared at Xiao Yuanwu and spoke indifferently again. However, his divine sense and attention swept across this world. In the end, his divine sense locked onto the imperial palace of the Heaven's Roar's capital city. A faint smile overflowed from the corner of his mouth, but this smile carried cruelty and a trace of killing intent. Chapter 8, Seeking Monthly Votes, Tips, and Recommendation Votes. If there are more votes, add more tomorrow. Chapter 8:12, The Lost Array, 1. 11 Li Lingtian, you're too arrogant. The destruction of the City of Heaven's Roars will depend on your ability. Qiao Yuanhui's expression turned ugly. He was nothing but an ant in front of Li Lingtian. However, when he looked at the restriction array divine pearl in his hand, a trace of comfort appeared on his face. He also found a trace of support in his heart. As long as the restriction array divine pearl was around, no one would be able to break through this city. Moreover, he had a powerful backer behind him. As long as Li Lingtian entered the city, he would be able to destroy Li Lingtian. At this time, the defensive array formation of the City of Heaven's Roars had long been restored. Separated by the powerful array formation, Qiao Yuanhui's expression was calm. However, they all knew that Qiao Yuanhui's heart was trembling. You are very ignorant and useless. Even if you want to submit to me, you are not qualified. I'll let you see how I destroy your city. Li Lingtian said calmly as he floated in the air. His elegant aura and otherworldly temperament were mesmerizing. He stretched out his hand and pointed at the Heaven's Roar's capital city, looking as if he was pointing out the country. After saying that, his eyes revealed a trace of disdain. The corners of his mouth curled up into a faint smile that made people feel afraid. This was because behind the smile was the indication that Li Lingtian was about to make his move. Instantly, countless powerhouses and armies turned to look at Li Lingtian. Although Li Lingtian was famous, not many people had seen him in action. Now, they were all curious about what Li Lingtian could do to break the forbidden array divine pearl. Divine array diagram, sacrifice. Li Lingtian did not say another word. He moved his divine consciousness and muttered to himself. A stream of light flashed between his brows and the divine array appeared before him. The 1 foot wide and 3 foot long divine array diagram flashed with a dazzling golden light. It looked extremely magical. Following that, Li Lingtian's 10 fingers flicked continuously as he cast a series of hand seals. Lu Haotian and the others were looking at Li Lingtian excitedly. It had been a long time since they saw Li Lingtian personally cast the array to break the formation. This was definitely a once-in-lifetime opportunity. As array masters, they naturally wouldn't let go of such an opportunity. If he could gain some insight from Li Lingtian's technique when he watched Li Lingtian cast the array, it would definitely be of great help to his array Dao and he might even be able to achieve a breakthrough. In this world, the Dao techniques are unparalleled. There are 3,000 major worlds and thousands of minor worlds. There are as many Daos as there are worlds. The Dao of formations is one of them, but it is the most mysterious one. The array Dao can also be said to be a branch of the heavenly Dao. One can control the array Dao to comprehend the heavenly Dao. Array Dao. The small is the array, the big is the Dao, the extreme is the saint, and the transformation is the heavenly Dao. The divine martial continent will always be a formation, not a Dao. Therefore, the experts of the world can only wander around in the formation. Li Lingtian's 10 fingers moved as he cast a series of incantation gestures. However, the more he moved, the slower his execution became. Lu Haotian and the others behind him could clearly see every single technique and incantation gesture. Moreover, as he executed the technique, he spoke indifferently. Instantly, Lu Haotian and the others were extremely grateful. They knew that Li Lingtian was taking this opportunity to preach to them. How much they could understand and accept would depend on their luck. Similarly, countless troops and powerhouses were shocked. They did not expect Li Lingtian to be so proficient in array Dao that it was beyond their imagination. Moreover, he was impressed by Li Lingtian's boldness and charisma. To think that he would speak in front of tens of millions of troops and powerhouses at this time. He had completely disregarded the array in the capital city of Heaven's Roars. For a moment, the army and the experts fell silent. Although Li Lingtian was only talking about array Dao, powerhouses could gain some insight from his words. This was a genius. The opportunity for a genius came from thousands of spiritual comprehensions. Often, a small matter would bring about an opportunity. Now that Li Lingtian was talking about the array Dao of the heavenly axiom, the martial Dao was also a part of the heavenly axiom. Naturally, everything would return to its roots. Boom! After an unknown period of time, the air trembled and an explosion sounded. The explosion woke up all the powerhouses and the army. At that moment, Li Lingtian was still floating in the air. However, a mysterious radiance appeared in his hand. In front of him was a magical world of light and shadow. The light shadows were crystal clear, as if they were illusions. However, these light shadows carried a magical array path, as if thousands of stars were moving. Instantly, countless troops and powerhouses stared blankly at the light and shadow array formation in front of Li Lingtian. The light shadow formation that was 1,000 meters wide flashed with a faint mysterious light. Restriction formation divine bead, activate. Xiao Yuanwu felt a tinge of fear when he saw the array formation before Li Lingtian. Although the array formation Li Lingtian cast did not seem powerful and he did not know what kind of array it was, anything that Li Lingtian created was terrifying. He didn't dare to hesitate any longer. With a flick of his divine sense, a mysterious bead appeared in his palm, the Forbidden Array Divine Bead. The Forbidden Array Divine Pearl emitted a powerful and mysterious light. The light became stronger and stronger. Instantly, the defense array of the entire Heaven's Roar's capital city disappeared at this moment. A dazzling light erupted from the Forbidden Array Divine Pearl. The dazzling light was like the rising sun, making people unable to help but get excited. The entire army and powerhouses on the battlefield, as well as the powerhouses who were watching from afar, looked at Li Lingtian curiously. They wanted to know if Li Lingtian could break the Forbidden Array Divine Pearl and what kind of array he was casting. However, no one knew what kind of array this array was, nor did they know the level of this array. However, some of them cried out in surprise when they saw the array. 12 Ancient Divine Formations. Time lost formation. Lu Haoshan's expression was one of shock, but it soon turned into excitement. He stared at the array formation in front of Li Lingtian with a dazed look as the corners of his mouth twitched before he finally exclaimed. Lu Haoshan's entire body trembled as if he had been electrocuted when he saw Li Lingtian's array. Time lost formation. Could it be the lost formation of the 12 most powerful divine formations of the ancient times? How is this possible? Only a divine array master can cast the 12 ancient divine arrays. Could he be a divine array master? The lost formation is a type of time formation. If you can control any one of them, you can sweep the world. It really is the time lost formation. Countless powerhouses exclaimed in surprise when they heard Lu Haoshan's words. They looked at Li Lingtian as if they had seen a miracle. It was like a martial artist seeing an ancient divine artifact or a longevity medicine. This is not the 12 ancient divine formations. But it is indeed the time lost formation, 1/9 of the time lost formation. With my cultivation base, I can only control 1/9 of the lost formation time. Li Lingtian looked at the array before him and pointed at it with his finger. The array quickly pressed forward while he followed behind them at a moderate pace, heading toward the capital city of Heaven's Roars. Indeed, this array was cast by him using the divine array diagram, but it did not mean that he was truly in control. Moreover, this lost array was a divine array, and it was one of the most powerful divine arrays. No matter if it was in ancient times or ancient times, this divine array existed, and it was the most powerful array. There was no one like it. This was because the power of this array formation was heaven-defying. No one had truly used it before. This array formation was related to the heavenly Tao, so this array formation was only one of the flaws. The lost formation could reverse time and travel back to the past. Although this was somewhat heaven-defying and exaggerated, no one really knew how powerful this array formation was. It was because it had not been used that it was said to be so powerful. However, even if it was an incomplete array formation, its power was still heaven-defying. Hush! All the experts and the army could not help but gasp. The army and powerhouses were shocked and they heard Li Lingtian say that it was the time-lost formation. At that moment, everyone was looking at Li Lingtian curiously to see how powerful the time-loss formation was and whether it could really break through the Heaven's Roar's capital city's defense formation. They were also looking at Xiao Yuanwu expectantly, wondering if the formation-restricting Divine Pearl could really break all formations. For a moment, the sky was extremely quiet. This battle had completely turned into a battle of array defense and offense. Sisi, Sisi. Walala. Chi chi, shishi. Hu. In the air, the time-lost formation continued to tear apart space, as if it wanted to reverse the time in the entire sky. A mysterious halo formed into a flickering pattern. These patterns were reflected in the array's light projection. Li Lingtian's entire being was shrouded in the array's radiance, making him appear extremely mysterious. Rumble. Rumble. When the heavens sensed the appearance of the time-lost formation, they roared. Thunder and lightning broke the silence of the space. The entire space was filled with lightning and thunder. However, the time-loss formation in front of Li Lingtian was not affected by the electric arcs and lightning bolts. It ignored the influence of the space completely and quickly pressed down on the roaring Heavenly King City. Boom! Finally, the light and shadow formation collided with the powerful light of the forbidden formation Divine Pearl. Heaven and earth trembled, and countless armies began to tremble. Their eyes were fixed on the distant sky, wanting to see who would win and who would lose. From the moment Li Lingtian cast the array formation to the moment the array formation attacked the light of the forbidden array Divine Pearl, the entire process seemed to have taken a long time. However, the actual process only took a dozen seconds. The light and shadow array formation and the mysterious light continued to erode. For a moment, there was no way to determine the outcome. None of the experts dared to look away, afraid that they would miss any exciting moment. However, as time passed, the light of the light-shadow array and the forbidden array Divine Pearl changed. Chapter 8:13, City of Heaven's Roar Shattered. At this moment, all the troops and experts exclaimed in surprise. This was because the time-loss formation in front of Li Lingtian completely ignored the light of the forbidden formation Divine Pearl and devoured the mysterious radiance. The light-shadow array quickly pressed down, and the mysterious light of the Heaven's Roar's capital city also quickly disappeared. At this rate, it would only take a short time for the time-loss array to devour this light. The forbidden array Divine Pearl was still helpless against Li Lingtian's time-lost array. Qiao Yuanwu's expression was extremely unsightly. The forbidden array Divine Pearl in his hand was a divine artifact and a supreme treasure of the world. There was no other treasure like it in this world. He did not expect that Li Lingtian would be able to break through such a treasure. His psychological defense was broken and his heart began to tremble. How can you seal the light of the formation God bead? Xiao Yuanwu stammered as he looked at Li Lingtian in confusion. However, the forbidden array Divine Pearl in his hand continued to emit a powerful and dazzling light. His entire Buddha's true essence was also rapidly injected, completely ignoring the fact that his true essence had already reached the point of exhaustion. I said you were ignorant. You have the forbidden array Divine Pearl. You are indeed the nemesis of the Holy Array Master. But in front of me, you have no chance. Because I have already surpassed the scope of a Holy Array Master. Furthermore, this time-lost array has surpassed the scope of any divine array. What you are facing might not be an array. Are you saying that you are the only one allowed to have the forbidden array Divine Pearl, but I am not allowed to have a treasure that can restrain your forbidden array Divine Pearl? Li Lingtian had a smile on his face as a hint of disdain seeped out from the corner of his mouth. In the end, he looked at the divine array diagram beside him. This divine array diagram was an array path supreme treasure. There was no single nemesis in this world. Just like the 5 elements, they were mutually reinforcing and countering each other. No matter how heaven-defying a treasure or attribute was, there was something that could restrain it. The forbidden array Divine Pearl was powerful and heaven-defying. The array cast by a holy array master would be countered, but it could not restrain the array cast by a divine array master. Furthermore, the divine array diagram in Li Lingxian's hands could counter the forbidden array divine pearl. Upon hearing Li Lingxian's words, all the powerhouses understood that Li Lingtian had the upper hand since long ago. It was a piece of cake for him to destroy the forbidden array divine pearl. Seeing this, all the powerhouses were even more fearful of Li Lingtian. It was the scariest thing to encounter such an all-round powerhouse. I see. Sacrifice. Upon hearing Li Lingxian's words, Qiao Yuanhua's face revealed an expression of I see. Then, he activated his divine mindfulness and released a wisp of blood essence. The blood essence gushed into the forbidden array divine pearl. Instantly, the forbidden formation divine bead received the enhancement of the blood essence, and its light suddenly soared. Li Lingxian's time-loss formation trembled slightly when the forbidding formation divine pearl's power increased. However, it quickly stabilized. 5 Elements World. As long as you are in this world, you will not be able to escape from my palm. Heaven and earth are balanced. The 5 elements are gathered. Withdraw. Li Lingxian's body flashed strangely and he passed through the time-lost formation in a strange manner. He arrived before the formation and bypassed the light of the forbidden array divine pearl before he made a strange grabbing motion across the air with one hand. A mysterious force of heaven and earth surged toward the forbidden array divine pearl. Immediately, the forbidden array divine pearl seemed to be imprisoned by a mysterious force as it quickly escaped from Qiao Yuanhua's palm and flew toward Li Lingtian. After losing the connection, the power of the forbidden array divine pearl instantly disappeared. In the blink of an eye, the forbidden array divine pearl was in Li Lingxian's hands. With a flash, Li Lingtian disappeared and reappeared on the war god. With a strange smile on his face, he muttered to himself and chanted an incantation. After this chant, the world trembled. The air distorted and tore apart, and the sky became distorted and uneasy, as if the end of the world had arrived. Boom! With a destructive explosion, a destructive halo erupted above the heavens roar's capital city. The halo spread in all directions, affecting hundreds of miles. The city wall was also reduced to nothingness. Everything on top of the city wall was reduced to nothingness. Space was constantly torn apart in front of this halo. The army that had originally retreated to the Heaven Roar's capital city also lost more than half under the ripples of this halo. The army that remained was less than 3 million. Between heaven and earth, energy raged and space fluctuated. The army and experts of the Carefree Empire, as well as the experts of the various kingdoms who were watching the battle, all trembled when they saw the destructive halo. If they were in that halo, how many chances would they have to survive? The answer was not a single chance at all. Those who obey will prosper. Those who rebel will die. Li Lingtian watched as the city walls of the capital city of Heaven's Roars were destroyed. It was the perfect time for the army to attack. His eyes were cold as he shouted out these 3 words. The 30 million soldiers below also replied loudly. Their entire aura soared in front of these 3 simple words, and their shocking aura caused the earth to tremble. Kill them! Kill them! Li Lingxian's face was filled with excitement as he felt the blood-boiling aura. He made a killing gesture with one hand and the 30 million strong army charged toward the capital city of Heaven's Roars like a raging wave. Countless powerhouses were like sharp arrows, entering the Heaven's Roars capital city. Instantly, the battle truly began. Boom! However, the moment the Carefree Dynasty's army came into contact with the city of Heaven's Roars, a shocking explosion sounded. Space seemed to have been sealed. Countless armies and experts were trapped in the air at this moment. The trapped experts and armies instantly lost their vitality. Countless soldiers and experts did not have time to stop and were also trapped in the air. The world was filled with an icy cold aura. In the sky, there were no glaciers like the one that froze 10,000 miles. However, all the armies and powerhouses that entered the Heaven's Roar's capital city were imprisoned. Seeing this scene, countless experts and armies were stunned and quickly retreated. Li Lingtian stood on the war god with a calm expression on his face. However, at this moment, the corners of his mouth kept muttering, but outsiders could not hear a single sound. He sent a secret message. It's finally here. After a while, the army retreated to a safe place and their eyes were fixed on Li Lingtian. Normally, an army would not retreat during a siege, but it was understandable for them to encounter such a situation. Such a heaven-defying strange thing, even if there were thousands of them, they would still be courting death. All of a sudden, all the troops and powerhouses were looking at Li Lingtian, waiting for his orders or for any solution he had to deal with the destructive cold yin qi. A faint cold aura floated in the air. This cold aura made people tremble and feel afraid. This world had become gloomy and indescribably strange and oppressive. Li Lingtian observed the situation in the air. The yin qi in the air was indeed laced with yin poison and cold poison. The two combined to form a destructive yin qi. Moreover, he also discovered that this cold yin qi came from the depths of the imperial palace. It seemed that some super expert had cast this strange cold yin formation. He opened his mouth and spoke indifferently as if he was talking to himself. His body swayed as he crossed 10 miles forward and stopped 10 miles before the roaring sky emperor city. So. Just as Li Lingtian arrived at the entrance of the capital city of Heaven's Roars, two peerless figures approached him. Tang Qingyue and Qing Ling stood on Li Lingtian's left and right. Their expressions were calm and unperturbed. During this period of time, the three of them had been in seclusion to study this yin poison and cold poison. The three of them had formed a joint formation. Tang Qingyue had the yin body and Qing Ling had the ice element. They cultivated the 9 yin scripture. With their cultivation base, Li Lingtian's ice soul martial soul, and countless ice element techniques, they were completely capable of resisting the frost poison and yin poison. Come out. A mere yin qi can deal with some ordinary people, but if you want to play tricks in front of me, you will appear petty. Li Lingtian, Tang Qingyue, and Qing Ling looked at each other before shouting. His voice was like a dragon's roar that spread throughout the entire battlefield and finally into the Heaven Roar's capital city. Upon hearing Li Lingtian's words, all the powerhouses understood that the cold yin energy was unleashed by a powerhouse. It appeared that Li Lingtian was prepared for this, otherwise, he would not have called out to the other party with such confidence. CC. Crash. More and more yin energy gathered in the air. The experts and the army that had been imprisoned gradually turned into pieces and disappeared into thin air. Just this alone had caused hundreds of thousands of people to die in the Xiaoyao dynasty's army, and countless experts had also vanished. If the entire army entered the city, all the experts and the army would be imprisoned. However, Li Lingtian was the only one who understood that even if the entire army entered, they would not necessarily be destroyed. This was because the cultivation of the powerhouses inside was limited and they could not control such a powerful force. If too many experts and armies entered, it would only dilute and disperse the yin qi. It would not be able to instantly destroy so many experts and armies. Destroy. In the sky, no experts appeared. Instead, the cold air became even denser. Li Lingtian's expression slowly changed when he saw that there was no movement in the sky. He waited for a moment but there was still no movement. When he saw this, his aura burst forth. With a light shout, he waved a hand, and a destructive aura bombarded the Heaven's Roar's capital city. The destructive power directly penetrated the cold air and crashed into the Heaven's Roar's capital city. The destructive aura tore through space. All the experts felt fear when they saw this destructive attack. This attack was not something a young martial saint could unleash. Even a 9th heavenly layer martial saint powerhouse would not have such a terrifying attack. Moreover, this attack was unleashed by Li Lingtian casually. This attack was enough to show how terrifying Li Lingtian was. Li Lingxian's terror was not something the powerhouses present could compare to. The terrifying attack landed in the depths of the palace like a meteor. Chapter 8:14, For Martial God Experts, 1. Boom! The destructive attack struck the depths of the palace, and a destructive halo instantly erupted. This destructive halo was no less powerful than the explosion of the array formation at the beginning. It was even more powerful. Countless buildings, experts, and armies were all destroyed. The imperial palace of the City of Heaven's Roars was destroyed in front of this attack. However, the fragments that were flying in all directions stopped at this moment. It was as if time had stopped. All the experts looked at everything as if they were watching an illusion. However, amidst this flying force, four black-robed figures appeared in the eyes of all the experts. Terrifying cold auras radiated from the four black-robed experts. This aura was extremely cold, and it was no different from the aura that destroyed the army just now. When all the experts saw these four figures, they all cried out in surprise. Martial God Expert! Martial God Expert! For martial gods! So it's a martial god expert. No wonder he's so terrifying. Could it be that I have to fight against four martial god experts alone? A martial god expert is actually hiding here. No wonder the people of the Heaven's Roar's capital city wanted to resist him. Turns out he has the support of a martial god powerhouse. For martial god experts are enough to wipe him out. All of a sudden, all the powerhouses were shocked. They had never thought Theta Martial God Powerhouse would appear in this place. Moreover, four martial god experts had appeared at once. For martial god experts were heaven-defying. In the divine martial continent, martial god realm experts were extremely rare. It was very rare to see one. The ratio of martial saints to martial god realm experts was 1 in 100,000. Usually, there might not even be one martial god realm expert among 100,000 martial saints. What was even more shocking was that the number of martial gods in Chuanzhou could be counted on 10 fingers. He did not expect so many martial gods to appear at once. Countless powerhouses were already certain of Li Lingxian's fate. No matter how heaven-defying Li Lingtian was, he was no match for the martial god, let alone the four martial gods. Li Lingtian was known to have killed a martial god powerhouse, but in the eyes of these powerhouses, they would never believe it if they did not witness it with their own eyes. Li Lingtian looked at the four black-clad powerhouses with a calm expression on his face, but he was shocked. He did not expect four martial god experts to appear in this place. He originally thought that there was only one terrifying martial god, but he did not expect there to be four terrifying martial god experts. Only he knew that the four martial gods looked no different from ordinary martial gods. However, the cultivation techniques that these four martial gods cultivated were extremely vicious. They were all sinister and cold. Li Lingtian, I've been waiting for you for a long time. I didn't expect you to only show up now. I'm so disappointed. You must be shocked and trembling. Let me introduce you so that you don't know who will kill you when you die. I am Hai Jiaming, this is Bai Yuntian, this is Bai Yunbian, and this is Qinghu. Did you commit suicide or did I not do anything? Four martial god experts appeared in the air. Their bodies were cold, and the space trembled in front of the four black-robed experts. The air began to distort, and the atmosphere of the entire world became oppressive and strange. No army or expert dared to make the slightest sound, lest they alarmed these four terrifying martial god experts and suffered a destructive blow. The might of a martial god could completely suppress all experts and armies, let alone four martial gods appearing in the air. The four martial gods didn't move at all, and they didn't exert any pressure. However, the atmosphere in the air made everyone feel pressured. A person's reputation was like a tree's shadow. This was the power of a martial god expert. Just this realm alone was enough to make the experts and the army present tremble in fear. Hai Jiaming hovered in the air, his eyes sweeping across the army and the experts, a disdainful look on his face. In front of him, martial artists below the martial god realm were all ants. In his eyes, Li Lingtian was just a slightly bigger ant. Looking at the army and experts trembling in front of them, a sense of superiority rose in their hearts. When she spoke to Li Lingtian, her tone was like she was judging Li Lingtian. The 30 million strong army and all the powerhouses looked at Li Lingtian and Hai Jiaming, but none of them dared to speak. In their eyes, Li Lingtian's fate was to vanish into thin air. Moreover, Li Lingtian would either submit and lower his head in front of a martial god powerhouse or tremble in fear. Trash. However, he did not expect Li Lingtian to remain calm after Hai Jiaming's words. He looked as if he was at ease with a faint smile on his face. They were both shocked and impressed by his expression. Even if they were to become Li Lingtian's opponents in the future, they could not help but admire Li Lingtian's calmness. His calmness alone was incomparable to any other warrior. To their surprise, Li Lingtian's lips curled into a smile as he uttered a single word. Li Lingtian's words sounded calm, but it was like a thunderclap to the army and powerhouses. One had to know that this was a martial saint scolding 4 martial gods as trash. What kind of concept was this? They're just 4 good-for-nothings. They're like clowns. Before I deal with you, jump around as much as you want. When the time comes, it's best not to tremble. Li Lingtian was not done yet. His expression remained unchanged as he scanned the 4 men with contempt. The corners of his mouth revealed a disdainful expression. Although he was shocked, he understood that a war could not be avoided at this time. Since it could not be avoided, he had to prepare for the battle from the beginning. The battle of mentality and aura would enrage the 4 of them before the battle, causing them to lose their aura before the battle. As expected, before Li Lingtian could finish his sentence, the 4 martial gods in the air were enraged. Their expressions changed drastically as they turned pale and trembled in anger. This was something they had never expected. Initially, they thought that the 4 of them would make Li Lingtian tremble with fear. However, they did not expect Li Lingtian to destroy their sense of superiority from the very beginning. The few of them felt as if they had punched cotton, and they felt inexplicably uncomfortable. Damn it! Detestable, detestable. Qing Lu and the other 3 were furious as they glared at Li Lingtian with vicious eyes. Suddenly, the space began to tremble strangely. The anger of the 4 martial gods caused the space to fluctuate. After such a long time, he had been treated like a clown and humiliated in front of tens of millions of people. He could no longer tolerate it and hated Li Lingtian to the core. Too much nonsense. Are you guys going to gang up on me, or am I going to be the only one being ganged up on? Li Lingtian took a step forward and with a wave of his hand, his aura soared. He looked extremely dashing as if he was fighting 4 martial gods alone. This unrestrained action made countless experts extremely excited. A martial saint fighting against 4 martial gods was definitely a legend. Seeing this legend with his own eyes was definitely the greatest gain in his life. Upon hearing Li Lingtian's words, they were stunned for a moment before they burst into laughter. This was because Li Lingtian intended for the 4 of them to fight against 4 people at once. Even a martial god would not dare to fight against a martial god like this. Yet, a martial god dared to fight against 4 martial gods. While the powerhouses were still in shock, Li Lingtian's true essence had been channeled to the maximum. The true dragon body barrier was activated and the limitless feather coat was activated. His aura was soaring rapidly. The entire space trembled at this moment, and the air continued to distort. His terrifying aura had already surpassed the realm of a martial saint. Even a martial god expert might not be able to compare to his aura. Heavenly Demon Region. Let's go. Li Lingtian shouted softly. Things had come to this and he had successfully angered the 4 of them. As long as the 4 of them did not join forces, he could still hold them back. If they were really in danger, he would not fight alone. Boom! The expressions on the 4 men's faces changed. If they were to fight Li Lingtian alone, they would not have the confidence to win. After all, they had heard about Li Lingshan's strength recently. Judging from Li Lingshan's terrifying aura, he was definitely not as simple as a martial saint. If the four of them were to fight Li Lingtian together, they would lose face even if they won. For a moment, they all fell into deep thought. They did not know if one of them would fight or join forces. Just as they were hesitating, Li Lingshan's destructive aura and pressure pressed down on them. The four men's auras clashed with Li Lingshan's heavenly demon domain. Instantly, the destructive auras collided and produced a terrifying tear. The space was torn apart at this moment and endless gales wreaked havoc in the sky. Shoo! The four martial gods, as well as the tens of millions of soldiers and experts present, all exhaled a breath of cold air after the clash of auras. Li Lingtian and the four martial gods were forced back by the destructive momentum. They only stabilized after retreating for several miles. All the powerhouses were shocked by Li Lingshan's imposing manner. Was he still a martial saint? A martial saint had actually used his aura to repel four martial gods. Only someone with heaven-defying strength could have such a terrifying aura. Hai Jiaming and the other three were shocked as well. It was only then that they finally understood how powerful Li Lingtian was. This young man could not be measured by his age or realm. Flaming sacred body. 9 suns sacred flame. Thunderclap wings. Li Lingtian floated in the air as his heart raced. However, he could not find the opponent's weakness. As a martial saint, he was facing four martial gods. No matter how heaven-defying he was not a match for the four of them. His most domineering attacks were single attacks. He had a few group attacks, but against the martial gods, he was simply tickling them. The only thing he could do now was to display his defense. If the other party attacked together, he wouldn't be so stupid as to pretend to be a hero. Brother Qinglu, let's go together. Let's not delay any longer. After we kill him, will you hurry back? Hai Jiaming no longer hesitated when he saw Li Lingshan's skill and attributes. He did not have much confidence in fighting this young man alone. Moreover, even if he defeated and killed Li Lingtian, he would still be injured. As a martial god powerhouse, any injury would affect his cultivation. Chapter 8:15, Power Contest, 1. Alright, let's join forces and kill him. Qinglu nodded and answered. He naturally understood Li Lingshan's strength. If it was a one-on-one fight, he could not take the risk. His voice was not loud, but countless experts heard him. Instantly, countless powerhouses were shocked. They did not expect the four martial god hidden powerhouses to join forces to deal with Li Lingtian. As a result, Li Lingshan's reputation grew to the point where four martial gods joined forces to deal with him. In the divine martial continent, there was no other martial saint powerhouse that could make a martial god powerhouse fight. Unless it was a powerhouse at the peak of the 9th heavenly layer of the martial saint realm. Even so, there was no way four martial gods would join forces. Moreover, Li Lingtian was only a young 1st heavenly layer martial saint. In an instant, the entire battlefield fell silent. This battle was no longer an ordinary battle. It was a battle between supreme experts. Are you sure you want to join forces to fight me? Li Lingshan's expression remained the same when he saw that the four of them were about to join forces. It's just 4 people. So what? What about you? Hai Jiaming was stunned when he heard Li Lingshan's words. A smile then appeared on his face as he uttered such a despicable statement. The numerous powerhouses and the army were rendered speechless. Even a martial god powerhouse was so shameless. Alright. Then don't regret it when the time comes. Li Lingshan's lips curled into a cruel smile as he took a step back in a flash, forming a strange formation with Qjianji Ling and Tang Zhenji. At the same time, his divine sense moved, and the air trembled slightly. A huge demon beast appeared in the air. The huge demonic beast floated in the air like a huge mountain range, but it emitted a destructive and terrifying aura. This aura made countless experts feel waves of fear. Even High Gemming and the other three felt the pressure. Ninth Order Monster Beast. A 9th rank demonic beast is equivalent to a martial god expert. Looks like Sir Ling Tian won't fight alone. Are you stupid? The other 4 martial gods shamelessly teamed up to bully Sir Ling Tian. The war god is also this shameless? A level 1 9th rank demonic beast is not much different from a first firmament war god. However, Sir Ling Tian's cultivation base is only at the martial saint realm. Even if his strength is heaven-defying, he can only deal with a martial god. For a moment, countless experts began to discuss. Now, they had the courage to discuss it because the 4 martial gods were joining forces to deal with Li Lingtian. There was no time to be distracted. Even if they were to discuss it, the martial god powerhouses would not be in the mood to deal with them. However, what happened next immediately shocked all the experts. The army of the Carefree dynasty also exclaimed. After the exclamation, they were even more excited. Li Lingshan's expression remained calm as he looked at the 4 martial god powerhouses. Since you're bullying me, then I won't be polite. Only I bully others. No one has ever dared to bully me. Li Lingtian spoke indifferently. After he was done speaking, he looked into the void with a smile. None of the powerhouses understood what Li Lingtian meant by that. They suspected that Li Lingtian was pretending to be strong to stall for time. However, the air trembled at this moment. Using numbers to bully the few is not the style of a strong person. That's right. Since you want to bully us with numbers, then we won't be polite. In the air, 2 voices appeared. The voices were conversing, completely ignoring the experts and the army below. The voice was extremely calm, but the appearance of this voice at this time did indeed make the atmosphere of the battlefield even more oppressive and strange. This place was filled with super experts. If there were experts hiding in the air, they would be seen by the martial saint and martial god. However, the owner of these 2 voices had been hiding in the air all this time. No one could tell what kind of powerful cultivation and strength they had. Just as all the experts were in shock, they looked up at the sky. 2 old men in their 50s appeared in the air. They were in great spirits. One of them was dressed in Confucian robes while the other was dressed in Taoist attire. The 2 of them slowly descended from the sky and hovered not too far away from Li Lingtian. Both of them looked at Li Lingtian with utmost respect. Martial God Expert. Another Martial God Expert. 2 martial gods. It's Martial Saint Outyen. No, it's Lord Martial God. Isn't this the number 1 martial saint of the great Shang Kingdom, Reverend Tian Chengzi? How come he has also reached the martial god realm? Could it be that they are all from the Carefree Empire? I didn't expect that after the battle at the Carefree Empire, both of them would reach the martial god realm. It was already heaven-defying to begin with. Now that I've become a war god, it's even more unimaginable. All the powerhouses were stunned when they saw the appearance of Yun Ao Tian and the other man. Both of them were martial god realm experts. Their terrifying cultivation and strength caused the aura in the air to tremble. Yun Ao Tian and Tian Chengzi's reputation was not any less than Li Lingshan's in the past. Naturally, there were countless people who knew them. However, after becoming martial gods, all the powerhouses were even more shocked. At the same time, he looked at Li Lingtian. Only Li Lingtian, the divine martial continent's number 1 divine alchemist, could create such a martial god. The army and experts of the Xiaoyao dynasty were all excited. Greetings, Lord War God. Greetings, Lord War God. All the troops and powerhouses bowed to Yun Ao Tian and the other man. Although this was not a half-kneeling ceremony, it was already heaven-defying to receive such treatment. The greeting of an army of 30 million and tens of thousands of experts had already raised the status of these 2 to a lofty level. Martial gods could be counted on 10 fingers in the Black Continent. In the eyes of martial artists, martial gods were gods. Now that these two martial gods were the martial gods of the carefree dynasty, they naturally had to be respected. Hai Jiaming and the other three were stunned. There were 4 of them, 3 of Li Lingshan's group, and a demonic beast that was comparable to a martial god. With such strength and numbers, the situation was completely out of their expectations. Seeing that Yun Ao Tian and the other 2 were worshipped by an army of tens of millions while they were only humiliated, such a difference in treatment made them feel disappointed and angry. This subordinate greets young master. Greetings, young madam. When Yun Ao Tian and Tian Qingzi saw the tens of millions of troops and experts paying their respects, they were incomparably happy. This was the treatment of a martial god, this was the status of a martial god. The martial god was already high and mighty in the divine martial continent. He had already reached a god-like status among the martial artists. However, they understood that Li Lingtian had helped them achieve their goals. Without him, they would not exist. Moreover, even if they had become martial gods, they were still nothing in front of Li Lingtian. Li Lingtian could help them or destroy them. In their hearts, Li Lingtian was their benefactor and their master. He was a master whom they could protect with their lives and would be loyal to them forever. This was the only way to repay Li Lingshan's kindness. After all the troops paid their respects, the 2 of them waved their hands and all the troops and experts stood up. In the end, he turned around and bowed respectfully to Li Lingtian. His face was filled with respect and adoration while his eyes were filled with Yucheng without any falsehood. At the same time, they also greeted Tang Genji and Qing Ling. They understood the importance of Tang Genji and Qjng Ling in Li Lingshan's heart. The powerhouses and the army were shocked by this situation. This was the charm of a master. No matter how powerful and superior they were all subordinates in front of Li Lingtian. Li Lingtian was the supreme master in their hearts and would always be the most respected master. Yes. The 3 of you, hold the line for me. I'll take care of them one by one. Fuck, they're bullying me because I'm outnumbered. Let's see what they can do. Li Lingtian nodded in satisfaction and nodded softly. The moment he spoke, countless powerhouses staggered and nearly fell. They were speechless at Li Lingshan's words and their faces were filled with black lines. However, they were slightly satisfied with the fact that the 4 martial gods were ganging up on Li Lingtian. This was bullying. Now that Li Lingtian had revealed his true strength, he was fully qualified to speak. Naturally, he would not let the other party off easily. Those who came out to mingle would have to pay back sooner or later. Swoosh, swoosh. Yun Ao Tian and Tian Qingzi did not speak but they answered Li Lingtian with their actions. The 2 of them spread out and formed a 3-legged confrontation with the gorilla monster, surrounding Hai Jiaming and the other 3. This situation completely stunned the experts. 2 people and a monster actually wanted to surround and kill the 4 martial gods. Even if they didn't surround and kill them, they were at least holding them back. Like master, like subordinates. Hai Jiaming, you motherfucker. Get out here. Li Lingtian waited for Yun Ao Tian and the others to get into position before the smile on his face grew wider. His tone was no longer as calm as before but was filled with curses. At this moment, he had the initiative. He had the initiative on the entire battlefield. However, he was extremely serious in his heart. After all, the cultivation of these 4 experts was strange, and the cultivation techniques they cultivated were extremely strange and vicious. After saying that, he looked at Tang Genji and Qingling and nodded. Whoosh, whoosh. The trio's strange formation became ethereal. Li Lingshan's aura was filled with the power of destructive flames. The terrifying flaming sacred body, coupled with the 9 suns sacred flame from his previous life, seemed to be able to destroy the entire space. However, Tang Genji and Qing Ling were displaying a terrifying icy aura. Both of their physiques were abnormal. One had the Tai Yin body, while the other had the 9 Yin absolute meridians and cultivated the 9 Yin scripture. Immediately, the three of them erupted with destructive flames and ICQJ. Two extreme attributes erupted at this moment. Two worlds formed in the sky. Countless experts and armies quickly retreated. A great battle between martial god powerhouses represented the destruction of heaven and earth. If the distance was too close, one would suffer the disaster of the fish pond. Chapter 8:16, Martial God High Gemming, 1. Boom! Boom! The destructive power of the flames burned the space, and the cold air seemed to freeze the world. The extreme world appeared at this moment. Seeing this, High Gemming and the other three were shocked. The cold poison and Yin poison cultivation techniques that they cultivated happened to be Yin cold chi. The power of the cold Yin energy was terrifying and destructive even among experts of the same level. In a battle between experts of the same level, they could completely kill their opponents. Even if they were first heaven martial gods, they still had the power to fight against second heaven martial gods. In their eyes, dealing with Li Lingtian was a piece of cake. Even though they were confident that they could defeat and kill Li Lingtian by themselves after witnessing Li Lingshan's formidable strength, the four of them wanted to join forces for fear of getting injured. However, they were held back by Li Lingshan's declaration of strength. Even so, they were confident that they could defeat all the powerhouses here. However, they never expected Li Lingtian and the two girls to use such a cultivation technique. It was as if the cultivation technique was specially designed for them. It was the nemesis of the Yin Qi. Good, very good. It seems that you already know our cultivation method and came up with this formation to fight us. If High Gemming still didn't understand, he would be a fool. It seemed that the spies from the Carefree dynasty had not been completely wiped out. Otherwise, Li Lingtian would not have used such a cultivation technique before the war even began. It was specifically designed to deal with the Yin Qi. Ha, ha. Since you've come to the Black Continent, don't ever go back. Li Lingtian laughed out loud as he extended his hands into the air. Instantly, the space shook. Two balls of light gradually gathered in his hands. One was blazing flames, and the other was ice. Both balls of light carried destructive power. In the world of the power of fire and the power of ice, Li Lingshan's two light orbs were like fish in water. Limitless holy flame. Spirit cold ice. Li Lingtian shouted softly and the space trembled. All the powerhouses felt their hearts tremble at that moment. They had heard that Li Lingtian possessed both ice and fire elements and was able to combine the two ultimate cultivation techniques to create a destructive force. Now, it seemed that it was indeed so. High Gemming cultivated the cold Yin Qi and his cultivation method was extremely vicious. Naturally, he could imagine the terrifying power of Li Lingshan's two attributes. He dared not be careless at this moment. He did not dare to treat Li Lingtian as a warrior sage powerhouse but as a powerhouse who was on par with him. Profound Yin true scripture. Heavenly Yin wind splitting palm. High Gemming's eyes were filled with malice. Cold energy burst out from his body and a whirlwind rose into the sky. The whirlwind was completely formed by Yin energy, and the space was instantly frozen. Seeing this scene, countless experts trembled. In the beginning, a single strand of Yin Qi could instantly kill countless experts and armies. Now that the martial god experts were using destructive techniques, their might would definitely be earth-shattering. If this attack landed on him, he would definitely disappear into thin air. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Countless armies and experts retreated once again. A battle between martial god experts could easily destroy the world. Everything within 1,000 miles was gone. Furthermore, all the powerhouses understood that after this battle, Heaven Esror's capital city was gone. At this moment, High Gemming flipped his hand in the air. The destructive cold air almost tore the space apart. At the same time, the whirlwind quickly turned into a palm shadow. The palm shadow was 1,000 meters long, and the powerful palm shadow seemed to cover the entire world. Cold air spread in all directions, and the space gradually froze. Even the experts and the army thousands of miles away felt a chill. In the blink of an eye, a destructive cold palm shadow took form, and the air distorted in front of this palm shadow. Heaven and earth changed color. Snow fell from the sky within 1,000 miles. Wherever the snowflakes fell, the air would be corroded and destroyed. Every snowflake carried a destructive cold poison and poison. Any expert who touched it would die. The destructive palm shadow was already hurtling toward Li Lingtian. The might of a martial god powerhouse was enough to turn the world upside down. At the same time, Qinglu, Bai Yuntian, and Bai Yunbian circulated their cultivation techniques, but they did not dare to make a move. That was because there were still 2 martial god experts and a 9th-tier demonic beast staring at them not far away. If they made a move, the other party would also attack at the first moment. Now that Hai Jeming was fighting Li Lingtian, a warrior sage was fighting a martial god. In their minds, no matter how powerful Li Lingtian was, he was no match for the martial god. Even with the help of the 2 girls, they were only using their cultivation techniques. This technique was only used to suppress Hai Jeming's yin qi, but it didn't have any real offensive power. Now, it was time to see if Li Lingtian or Hai Jeming was more powerful. The entire battle was now focused on Li Lingtian and Hai Jeming. All the powerhouses and the army were extremely excited and shocked. They were excited to see Li Lingshan's martial saint battling the martial god, but they were shocked by Li Lingshan's strength. If he could defeat the martial god, he would become the opponent of all powerhouses in the future. By then, he would surely be feared by all powerhouses in the world. 9 heavens, 4th heaven, forbidden. Li Lingtian looked at the palm shadow in the air and unleashed the power of fire and power of ice from his entire body. As he clasped his hands together, a destructive aura erupted between heaven and earth. One was death, and the other was destruction. The 2 auras strangely fused and mutated, finally turning into the aura of extermination. In the end, the space quickly trembled, and the world became strange. After becoming a martial saint, the cultivation of his entire body had sublimated, and any skill or divine art could turn something rotten into something magical. At this moment, the power of the 9th heaven had already reached the transcendent state. The power of the 4th heaven was simply a taboo existence. At once, Li Lingshan's hands were clasped together and a pillar of light appeared. The pillar of light carried a forbidden power, and the powerhouses and armies in the world trembled when they saw this attack. Li Lingshan's cultivation stayed aside. The destructive taboo power of the light pillar alone was enough to make a martial god powerhouse feel fear. In the air, the light beam blasted toward the palm shadow. All the experts stared at the 2 destructive attacks, their hearts thumping non-stop. Boom! Finally, the 2 attacks collided. From the moment Li Lingtian unleashed the Binghua 9 heavens to the moment the 2 attacks collided, the entire process seemed to take a long time, but it was only a blink of an eye. The 2 attacks collided, and space began to shatter. Then, a halo burst out. The destructive halo was like a collision between planets. Wherever the halo passed by, everything was destroyed. Even the air was destroyed. This space, within 1,000 miles, was a vacuum. Only the 3 black-robed experts, Yun Ao Tian, and the gorilla demon were floating steadily in the air. The destructive halo pushed Qing Ling and Tang Qingyue 10 miles before stabilizing. Crimson Light Heavenly Monarch. The 2 attacks cancelled each other out, and both Li Lingtian and Hai Jeming were forced back. Seeing this scene, the experts in the distance were all shocked. They looked at the 2 of them in shock. They were shocked by the martial god's terrifying means and were even more shocked by Li Lingshan's dominance. A martial saint powerhouse was actually able to fight the martial god without falling into a disadvantage. Li Lingshan's heart skipped a beat as he was utterly shocked. A martial god powerhouse was indeed a martial god powerhouse. Although the martial god powerhouse he encountered this time was also at the first heaven, he was stronger than Wu Dao. He was the only one who knew how strong the power of the ninth heaven was. The power of the fourth heaven was many times stronger than that of a martial saint. However, such a powerful power did not injure the other party, let alone kill him. In a battle between experts, victory and death were in the blink of an eye. One's entire spirit and concentration did not dare to be distracted. Moreover, in a battle, all the calculations and experience were the key to victory and death. As he retreated, he had already summoned Heavenly Monarch Crimson Light. He already had a battle plan in his heart. When facing a martial god expert, he had to use his most powerful attacks and methods. Crimson Light Heavenly Monarch appeared in his hand and locked his consciousness onto high gemming. He did not even look at high gemming. Shoo! Countless powerhouses gasped and they saw the overbearing Crimson Light Heavenly Monarch in Li Lingshan's hand and the pressure that could crush a martial saint powerhouse. With such a divine weapon, they already had a heaven-defying advantage. Boom! Boom! Whoosh, whoosh! In the air, Heavenly Monarch Crimson Bright's ancient divine weapon's pressure continued to crush the space. Although Heavenly Monarch Crimson Bright could not unleash the power of an ancient divine weapon in Li Lingshan's hands, it had already reached the level of a supreme divine weapon. Even the power and pressure of a peerless divine artifact was not something that martial artists could withstand. Just the pressure of this peerless divine artifact was already the nemesis of martial god powerhouses. However, no one recognized the origin and power of the treasure in Li Lingshan's hand. Nonetheless, the pressure was so terrifying that they could not help but tremble. Hai Jiaming's expression was extremely grave. The Yin Qi had no effect on Li Lingtian. Furthermore, Li Lingshan's strength was extremely terrifying. From the previous attack, he could tell that Li Lingtian had already surpassed the realm of a martial saint. Now that he had taken out such a heaven-defying divine artifact, it would be strange if he wasn't afraid. However, he was excited and revealed a greedy heart. If he could obtain this miracle, his strength would increase by a large margin. Dark Sky Ice Arrow. He looked at Li Lingtian with a grave expression. Feeling the destructive pressure, his aura burst forth to resist the pressure in the air. With a flick of his divine sense, an exquisite small bow appeared in front of him. He then grabbed at the air with one hand, causing the space to tremble. A tearing sound could be heard from the air, as if the space had stopped tearing. Instantly, the small bow in his hand turned into a huge bow. His right hand slowly descended from the void. In his hand, there was a destructive profound Yin Qi. The profound Yin Qi was filled with coldness. 1,000-meter-long cold energy quickly fused and compressed. In the blink of an eye, the 1,000-meter-long Yin energy formed a 5-meter-long divine arrow that continuously emitted a destructive halo. Chapter 817, The Martial God Has Fallen. Terrifying profound Yin Qi continuously wrapped around the arrow. The heavenly Yin black ice arrow condensed from profound Yin QJ stirred the space, and the world trembled at this moment. The 10-meter-long arrow was knocked on the strong bow, and a bolt of lightning instantly descended from the sky. The high heavens also felt this destructive power, as if it wanted to destroy the destructive power of this long arrow. At that moment, Li Lingshan's eyes were filled with shock. When the bow was aimed at him, it was as if the Grim Reaper was staring at him. His entire body felt threatened by death. This was the first time he had encountered such a threat since he came to this world of powerhouses. Feeling the threat of death, Li Lingshan's heart trembled. But at this moment, he did not dare to hesitate anymore. Crimson Light Heavenly Monarch waved his hand, and the destructive dark Yin fire shone on his body. A terrifying power filled the entire space. The Crimson Light Heavenly Monarch was an ancient divine weapon. With Li Lingshan's current cultivation base and his control, he could double the Crimson Light Heavenly Monarch's power. Double the power and speed. Such a terrifying existence could only be achieved by heavenly monarch Crimson Light. Hush! At this moment, all the true essence in his body was sucked dry. He used up all his true essence and slashed out a destructive light towards the other party. The two of them were less than 10 miles apart, and the destructive power bombarded each other fiercely. So. Boom! The heavenly sound Dark Frost arrow left the bowstring and shot through the void toward Li Lingtian. There was the sound of air being torn apart as Li Lingshan's Crimson Light Heavenly Monarch's attack came slashing down. The two attacks carried the power to tear through the air. The space in front of the two attacks continuously trembled and wailed. Countless experts and armies were stunned at this moment. The two destructive attacks were not something a martial saint could withstand. They could kill any expert. The 30 million soldiers and tens of thousands of experts tensed up, their hearts already in their throats. This attack should be the final attack between the two of them. The outcome would be decided in one blow. If Li Lingtian were to win, the battle would basically be a victory. If Li Lingtian were to lose, he would either be destroyed or injured. No matter which one it was extremely extreme. This kind of situation made anyone feel nervous. In the sky, there was no sound other than the two sounds of air being torn apart. All the experts quieted down, their eyes fixed on the two attacks. The martial god powerhouse's attack and the omnipotent powerhouse's monstrous Li Lingshan's attack were two attacks that were rarely seen in the Black Continent. At this moment, the two terrifying powerhouses were clashing against each other. Time seemed to have stopped at this moment. He didn't know how much time had passed. A moment, a second, a century, or forever. Finally, Crimson Light Heavenly Monarch's light power and the terrifying power of the Heavenly Melody Darkfrost arrow collided. Kacha! Space was torn apart by two destructive forces. All the experts and the army were startled awake. They were even more nervous at this moment because victory and defeat would appear at this moment. Ah, 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 in the sky, destructive power began to tear apart. Terrifying force winds continuously tore apart the experts in the sky. There were no armies or experts within 1,000 miles, but from 1,000 miles away, the strong wind and force could still affect them. Moreover, Yun Aotian and the other martial god experts also felt the destructive power. They quickly cast the terrifying martial god defense to protect themselves and prevent the destructive power in the air from tearing them apart. At the same time, they focused their attention on Li Lingtian and the black-clad powerhouses. They would take action at the first sign of trouble. Boom! With a shocking explosion, Crimson Light Heavenly Monarch and the Heavenly Melody Darkfrost arrow exploded with destructive power in the air. The two forces exploded, and the space was instantly vacuum. A pitch-black hole appeared in the sky. Ah! Puff! At this moment, Hai Jeming's face was filled with despair. This was because he had never expected such a situation to occur. The power of the Heavenly Melody Darkfrost arrow was enough to kill Li Lingtian. This move was his trump card, his final trump card. However, Li Lingshan's Crimson Light Heavenly Monarch was too terrifying. Two attacks were unleashed at the same time. To his surprise, Li Lingshan's Crimson Light Heavenly Monarch's speed and attack were twice as powerful as Li Lingshan's maximum. It had twice the attack and twice the speed. With speed, the attack would break through the resistance of space. Speed and attack would complement each other to achieve the most powerful effect. With such terrifying speed, the attack had already collided with Heavenly Monarch Crimson Light's attack the moment the Heavenly Melody Darkfrost arrow was shot out. Hai Jeming became the center of the explosion. If the two attacks had collided in the middle, he would not have been so unlucky. However, Li Lingshan's attack was too fast, causing the explosion to occur not too far away from Hai Jeming. With a miserable cry, his body retreated backward. At that moment, Li Lingtian spat out a mouthful of blood as his body flew backward. However, at this moment, a strange distortion appeared in the air. Mysterious sky divine arrow. At the same time, a sweet voice sounded. As the voice fell, the strange distortion arrived in front of Hai Jeming. A passage seemed to have been opened in the center of the distortion. At this moment, all the martial saints finally saw clearly that this passageway was condensed by destructive spiritual energy. The destructive spiritual energy condensed into a spatial passageway, but there was an ancient long arrow in this passageway. By the time they saw it, the arrow had disappeared into the air. Mysterious sky divine arrow. Time waits for me, ah. At this moment, Hai Jeming's eyes were filled with despair. His body froze in the air and he didn't retreat. However, when she cried out in surprise, her voice was filled with unwillingness. In the end, screams rang out. The ancient arrow had already pierced through him, and his body quickly turned into pieces. Pfft! Li Lingtian spurted out another mouthful of blood, but he managed to stabilize himself. A girl hugged him from behind and stabilized his retreat. Rumble. The space exploded at this moment, and the destructive force wreaked havoc. All of this was too strange. From the start of Li Lingshan's battle to Hai Jeming being attacked by the godly arrow, the entire process seemed to take centuries, but it only took 10 seconds. However, Li Lingshan's 2 attacks were on par with the martial god's Hai Jeming. However, Hai Jeming was tricked by Li Lingshan's speed in the end. Although it was unexpected, Li Lingtian was right about it. One was intentional and the other was unintentional. The ending was too unexpected. At the same time, all the experts and the army were stunned. In just 10 seconds, the expert of the Sea Pavilion, Ming Wu, had died. The martial god, Hai Jeming, had fallen. Moreover, he had fallen at the hands of a martial emperor girl. A few girls appeared beside Li Lingtian. One of them stopped Li Lingtian and supported him while the others stood beside him. These girls were all peerless and charming, stunning the world. One of the girls looked extremely cute and delicate, but she held an exquisite bow in her hand. He waved his hand in the air and an exquisite short arrow appeared in his hand. At this moment, all the soldiers and experts realized that Hai Jeming was really unlucky. He had never thought that a martial god expert would fall at the hands of this delicate girl. As it turned out, Huangfu Yuyan and the others had been waiting for an opportunity on the war god when Li Lingtian was fighting Hai Jeming. In the end, Ge saw the opportunity and unleashed the mysterious heavenly divine arrow, tearing through the void to kill Hai Jeming. Free and unfettered empire. Free and unfettered empire. Young master, young master. Young Master D, young Master D. On the battlefield, after a short period of silence, it was suddenly in an uproar. The 30 million soldiers cheered, and countless experts cheered. In an instant, the morale of the army soared. At this moment, the Freedom King dynasty had already become the most dazzling kingdom in everyone's eyes. All the soldiers and experts were proud to be citizens of the Xiaoyao dynasty. The countless experts from the various kingdoms watching the battle from afar were completely shocked. From the start of the war, the Xiaoyao dynasty had swept forward with an invincible force. Ever since Li Lingtian appeared in Xianzhou, he had been an undefeated miracle. Alright, Hai Jeming has been dealt with. Let's do it together. I don't want to waste time. After stabilizing his injuries, Li Lingtian looked coldly at Bai Yunbian, Bai Yuntian, and Qingliu as he spoke calmly. As the sound of his voice faded, his divine sense moved, and a medicinal pill appeared in the air. He then placed the medicinal pill into his mouth. Instantly, the primeval essence that was originally exhausted was instantly restored at this time. Shoo! What kind of medicinal pill is this? He can actually recover his true energy instantly. He can recover the true energy of a martial sage. A saint alchemist is indeed a saint alchemist. The #1 saint alchemist in the divine martial continent is indeed powerful. This is too heaven-defying. It can instantly recover true essence. If I had such a pill, I wouldn't have to worry about the problem of true essence. This is the heaven-defying power of the number one alchemy saint. Countless powerhouses were shocked and they saw Li Lingxin's true essence recover in an instant. They could not help but discuss among themselves. Similarly, Bai Yuntian and the other two were shocked and they saw Li Lingxin's depleted vital essence recover in an instant. It was bad luck to meet such a person. The battle just now had exceeded their expectations. They did not expect Li Lingtian to be so powerful. The fact that he was so powerful that he could kill a martial god like Hai Jeming in just a few moments was already a symbol of invincibility and immortality. Even if a martial god couldn't defeat him, he could still escape. But now, Hai Jeming had been killed in the blink of an eye. In the sky, there was no other sound other than the discussions of the experts. After Li Lingtian spoke, Bai Yunbian, Bai Yuntian, and Qingliu looked at Li Lingtian with a grave expression. The atmosphere was extremely tense. Chapter 8:18, Light of Reincarnation, 1. Alright, in that case, let's do it. Bai Yuntian pondered for a moment as he looked at the countless experts and armies. The city of Heaven's Roars had already been destroyed. Everyone here was from the Carefree Empire, while the rest were merely spectators. Li Lingxin's strength was too terrifying. Furthermore, he had a few helpers. This was beyond their imagination. Everything was beyond their expectations. The situation had become serious. If they did not take action, they would be destroyed in this place. After saying that, he exchanged a glance with Bai Yunbian and Qingliu. Immediately, his body quickly separated, forming a strange formation. Swoosh, swoosh. Roar. Immediately, Yun Ao Tian and Tian Qingzi flashed and flew towards the clear stream and the white cloud. The gorilla demon roared and charged towards Bai Yuntian. In an instant, the three martial god powerhouses and Li Lingxin's helpers were engaged in a fierce battle. In the air, waves of destructive energy swept across, and space began to shatter at this moment. Li Lingtian glanced at Tang Qingyue and the others before nodding. He quickly retreated and returned to the war god. Countless experts knew that this battle was basically a foregone conclusion. The Carefree dynasty fought against the Kingdom of Heaven's Roars, destroying the 20 million troops of the Kingdom of Heaven's Roars. Heaven's Roar's capital city was already destroyed, no longer having the appearance of a capital city. Li Lingxin's reputation was even greater. He had single-handedly killed a martial god powerhouse in the blink of an eye, destroyed the forbidden formation Divine Pearl, and cast the lost formation. The four great kingdoms were about to be unified. After that, the great Shang kingdom would become history. Naturally, the Carefree dynasty would become even stronger. At that time, they would be able to unify the other kingdoms even faster. Boom! 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 Roar! In the sky, space was continuously torn apart. 6 figures flashed rapidly. The gorilla demon's huge and heavy body was also as fast as lightning. This was the first time a battle between martial god realm experts had happened in the Black Continent. All the experts and the army were stunned when they saw the battle between martial god realm experts. The destructive aura caused all the experts and armies within 10,000 miles to retreat far away. At this moment, only the 9-headed war god was floating within a radius of 10,000 kilometers. Only the war god's array and defense could withstand the destructive power of the war god's battle. Li Lingtian stood on the war god with a calm expression on his face. The blood at the corner of his mouth had long been wiped away by Tang Zimeng One's silk handkerchief. Tang Genji and the others stood by Li Lingxin's side and waited for the battle to end. However, despite his calm expression, Li Lingtian was puzzled. Although the four martial god powerhouses had cultivated the chilling yin energy and possessed terrifying strength, they had also killed Hai Jeming in the beginning. However, he still felt that something was wrong. The body of the secret agent was killed by yin poison, and Hai Jeming and the other three didn't have such strength. No matter how terrifying the cold Yin cultivation technique was, it could not reach such power. In other words, these 4 people were not the ones who killed the spy at all, or rather, it was someone else. Someone else? Li Lingshan's heart skipped a beat as his expression changed. Big brother Ling Tian, what's wrong? Tang Zimen quickly asked when she saw Li Lingshan's expression. She thought that there was something wrong with Li Lingshan's injury. Huangfu Yuyan and the others immediately turned to look at Li Lingtian. Not good, there's another expert hiding here. Li Lingtian whispered in a serious tone that only Tang Qingyue and the others could hear. There are other experts? Instantly, the girls looked at Li Lingtian in shock. It was already heaven-defying to have 4 martial god powerhouses. If there were other powerhouses, what kind of concept would that be? There must be something strange about the fact that there were so many martial god powerhouses in the capital city of Heaven's Roars. Yes, these 4 martial god experts are not the ones who killed the spy we saw before. It must be someone else. Li Lingtian nodded as his expression returned to normal. However, his divine perception was still scanning his surroundings for fear of a sneak attack. However, the surroundings were extremely quiet. There were no experts hiding at all. The more this was the case, the more worried Li Lingtian was. His gaze shifted to the place where Yun Aotian and the others were fighting. He paid attention to the scene of the battle. If anything unexpected happened, he would attack immediately. Even if he was injured, he would not let his 3 martial god helpers die. After all, it was rare to have 3 martial gods as helpers. If one of them was missing, it would affect the future of the Carefree dynasty. Rumble. 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 Explosions continued in the air. Bai Yuntian and the others were almost on par with each other. Even though Yun Aotian and the other had just broken through, they were both super experts among super experts. They had obtained an ancient inheritance and their strength was extremely terrifying. For a moment, the 3 battle groups were evenly matched. It was impossible to determine the victor. However, at this moment, a strange change occurred in the battle. Yin, cold, absolute, poison. Heaven, earth, change, change. Reincarnation light. Bai Yuntian, Bai Yunbian, and Qinglu actually gave up on attacking and retreated. At the same time, a pale green jade scepter appeared in their hands, and they kept chanting mysterious incantations. The speed of the entire spell was extremely fast. In the end, a destructive green light exploded in the air. The entire process happened in an instant. The entire battlefield was covered by the pale green light that descended from the void. Instantly, the entire battlefield was imprisoned. The pale green light carried a destructive aura. Yun Aotian, Tian Qingzi, and the gorilla demon all revealed terrified expressions. He looked extremely painful. The pale green light quickly pressed down, as if it wanted to crush Yun Aotian and the others. However, Bai Yunbian and the others didn't pose any threat in the light at all. They were as relaxed as fish in water. Trash, you can't even handle such a small matter properly. You even need the ancestor to do it personally. In the air, a vast voice sounded. When the voice fell, a phantom appeared above the pale green light. At this moment, the pale green light was a light shield that enveloped Yun Aotian and the others. The shadow could not be seen clearly, but its body emitted an aura of destruction and death. The entire shadow seemed to be formed by the cold separation. As expected, Li Lingtian was shocked to the core. With a flash, his entire body burst forth with destructive power. He was already suspended in the air and his aura had reached its peak. The sudden change just now was only in an instant. By the time he reacted, Yun Aotian, Tian Qingzi, and the gorilla demon had already been imprisoned. Moreover, this phantom seemed to have been in the pale green light all along. The light was the light of reincarnation. Li Lingtian was an array master and was proficient in the cultivation techniques of the human race, the infernal race, and the underworld. Naturally, he knew that the light of reincarnation was a cultivation technique of the underworld, and it was an extremely vicious and terrifying cultivation technique. At this moment, he did not dare to hesitate anymore. He circulated the power in his entire body to the limit. With a flick of his consciousness, the divine martial black heavenly sword appeared in his hand. His eyes flashed with a cold light. Divine martial profound heaven sword, the sword will destroy the world. Die! Li Lingtian shouted as he unleashed his metal Dao intent. At the same time, a destructive sword intent soared into the sky. He stretched out his hand and the divine martial black heavenly sword in his hand smashed fiercely at the phantom with a destructive cyclone. Instantly, the void was destroyed. At this moment, the void destruction had already been used. The sword light pierced through the void. Wherever the sword light passed, there was a black hole space. There was no time or space. When the sword light appeared, it had already arrived in front of the phantom. Boom! The destructive black hole struck the shadow, and a shocking explosion sounded. The green light disappeared. Yun Ao Tian, Tian Qingzi, and the gorilla demon were finally rescued. Ah! Ah! Two screams sounded at the same time. The power of the void destruction swallowed by Yunbian and Qing Lu. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared into the black hole. Bai Yuntian was thrown out as well. His eyes were filled with despair, but amidst the despair, there was a cruel look. The jade scepter in his hand shattered at this moment, and the world instantly trembled. The green light appeared once again. When the green light appeared, Bai Yunshan's entire body was corroded by the green light. The cold yin qi on his body burst out, but the cold yin qi quickly disappeared into the green light. This change in the sky caused all the troops and experts to be shocked, as if they had seen a ghost. There really were ghosts in this world. This green light was even more terrifying than ghosts. Kaka, kaka. Hee hee, hee hee. An ear-piercing and cold laughter rang out. The illusory figure floated in the air again. The illusory figure's body was even more solid, and there was a faint green color to it. It was obvious that it was formed by a green light. Furthermore, the green light became even more terrifying after absorbing Bai Yunshan's vital essence and yin energy. Whoosh, whoosh. Yun Ao Tian, Tian Qingzi, and the gorilla demon had returned to the edge of the war god to protect Tang Zimen and the others. They were extremely afraid. If it were not for Li Lingshan's forceful attack, the light of reincarnation would not have been broken and they would have been killed. So it's you. Li Lingtian looked at the shadow in horror before he looked at the reincarnation light that was swirling around the shadow. He was extremely shocked before he finally spoke in a calm voice. The aura of this shadow was the terrifying figure that killed the secret agents. Junior, you are unlucky to have met me. You are powerful, but in front of me, you are not even comparable to an ant. The illusory figure spoke in an aged manner. His emerald green eyes were fixed on Li Lingtian as his body morphed into various forms. He was no longer a human but a terrifying monster. All the experts and the army could not help but tremble. There was no way to attack such a monster. If even Li Lingshan's destructive attack could not kill it, what other attack could defeat it and kill it? Everyone understood that this phantom could not be killed by attacks at all. Chapter 819, Dark Nether Ancestor. Is that so? Li Lingshan's expression was extremely grave as he could not think of any way to fight against the phantom. This phantom was not a physical entity at all. It was impossible to attack it. Moreover, this phantom was extremely terrifying. The power of the light of reincarnation and the cold air could kill any expert below the martial god realm. He was helpless against this old man. However, he was still calm. He circulated his ice soul martial soul to stabilize his mind. The true essence in his entire body was circulated to the extreme. The five elements' sacred body was activated at this time, and the five elements' Tao intent was also circulated. The five elements' Tao intent raged in the air. Li Lingshan's entire body seemed to have blended into this world. Water Tao intent. As he spoke to himself, the air suddenly became damp. Gradually, the sound of running water could be heard between heaven and earth. In an instant, the sound of rumbling could be heard in the air, as if a river was rolling. However, the voice suddenly stopped. The air became extremely frozen, as if it was going to freeze the world. Coupled with the shadow's cold aura, this world had completely turned into a frozen century. Li Lingtian extended his hand in the air and a strange flame appeared in his palm. His palm was also flickering with a strange icy flame. Ice flame. Instantly, countless powerhouses recognized the icy frost flame in Li Lingshan's hand. When they saw it, they could not help but shudder. This icy frost flame was a warrior's nemesis. It surpassed all kinds of attributes and could not be restrained by flames. There was ice in the flames, and the ice formed a strange ice flame. It was not flames and ice at all, but a mutation of flames and ice. No one could say whether this ice flame was flames or ice. However, Li Lingtian understood that the icy frost flame could change in front of him according to his mood and thoughts. After the appearance of the ice flame, the space began to tremble as if it could not withstand the destructive tremors of the ice flame. Furthermore, the ice flame in Li Lingshan's hands grew stronger and more numerous. Gradually, the ice that was originally only the size of a fist had grown to a meter in diameter. It was like a ball of destructive power that could explode at any time. At the same time, the world, time, and space seemed to have frozen. Last time, Li Lingtian had obtained an endless supply of icy frost flames at the exit of the ice palace in the demonic canyon. He did not have the time to refine the icy frost flames after absorbing them. However, ever since he obtained the icy frost flame, he had never forgotten about it. All these years, he had been refining the icy frost flame. Only after he reached the martial saint realm did he truly refine the icy frost flame. The current ice flame was enough to destroy the world. Not bad, not bad. Today, I'll teach you the power of the Yin Qi and the light of reincarnation. The shadow trembled slightly when it saw Li Lingshan's ice flame, but its expression could not be seen. After the voice was heard, the shadow disappeared in a strange manner. However, the pale green reincarnation light in the sky flashed and quickly pressed down on Li Lingtian. At that moment, Li Lingtian waved his hand and the frost flame in his hand turned into a ray of light that pressed down on the opponent's reincarnation light. At the same time, his figure disappeared, as if he had disappeared into thin air. Roar! Roar! In the sky, before the light of the ice flame and the light of reincarnation collided, Li Lingshan's roar was heard. His voice was like a dragon's roar that shook the 9 heavens. However, Li Lingshan's figure was nowhere to be seen and his shadow was nowhere to be seen. One man and one shadow hid in the air as they constantly flashed and attacked. No one could see what attacks the shadow and Li Lingtian were using, nor did they know what was going on. Tang Qingyue and the others were also extremely worried. They could not tell the cultivation of this phantom, but it was extremely terrifying. They could not use their attacks to fight at all. Encountering such an expert, he had no confidence at all. Chi-chi, chi-chi, si-si, si-si. Boom. 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 At this moment, the light screen formed by the icy flame finally collided with the light of reincarnation. Immediately, a sizzling sound appeared in the air, and the space continuously trembled and tore. Furthermore, there were continuous explosions. The entire space trembled as if it was about to be destroyed at any moment. However, after the two extreme destructive forces collided, it was a tie. At least, it was impossible to tell who was the winner for the time being. Puchi. With a dull thud, Li Lingtian appeared in the air with a pair of crystal-clear wings on his shoulders. There was blood at the corner of his mouth. At this moment, his entire spirit was greatly damaged, and his face was pale. At the same time, the shadow appeared in the air. No one could tell what was going on with the shadow. However, the shadow did not attack Li Lingtian after it retreated. Countless powerhouses were baffled by this situation. Because the phantom had no expression and no physical body, it was impossible to tell if it was injured or if its expression had changed. True Dragon Qi. Li Lingtian's body was emitting waves of cold yin qi. This cold yin qi was obviously the damage that the phantom had inflicted on Li Lingtian. The cold yin qi continued to erode Li Lingtian. However, Li Lingtian's 5 elements sacred body quickly converted the cold yin qi into true essence and turned it into a resource. Moreover, Li Lingtian's aura was rising rapidly and his aura was changing. His body rapidly changed, and finally, he turned into a phantom, a divine dragon. After the true dragon phantom appeared, the world was torn apart. The power of the divine dragon was earth-shattering. Divine dragons were the most powerful of the myriad races. Their power tore through the void and destroyed the world. Li Lingtian transformed into a 100-meter-long phantom true dragon and unleashed his shocking dragon energy. After the true dragon body barrier reached the 5th level, it would be the true dragon power. After reaching the 5th level, one could completely transform into a divine dragon. The might of the true dragon's power was just that overbearing. Furthermore, Li Lingtian activated the dragon energy of the 3,000 worlds in the divine dragon ring with a flick of his divine consciousness. The dragon energy of one world surged out and quickly entered Li Lingtian's body. The domineering true dragon qi corroded the air, and the entire world became true dragon qi. True dragon body. There's true dragon qi. What a terrifying true dragon qi. I didn't expect him to cultivate such a tyrannical cultivation technique. Who else in this world can compare to his defense? It's a true dragon. It's actually reached the level of a true dragon. The true dragon can transform into a phantom. It's just right to fight against the phantom. What a terrifying true dragon QJ. In the sky, countless powerhouses who were watching the battle stared at Li Lingtian in horror. Everyone knew that Li Lingtian was at the 5 elements perfection and possessed incredible strength. However, he did not expect Li Lingtian to cultivate the most powerful dragon tribe cultivation technique in the world. The dragon tribe no longer belonged to the demon tribe because he was the supreme being of the demon tribe. He had surpassed the demon tribe and had become a noble race like humans. In terms of strength, the dragon race was the strongest in this world. Now that Li Lingtian had cultivated the true dragon's strength, it was evident how powerful he was. With the appearance of the true dragon power, the phantom also shook. Immediately, the phantom flashed rapidly and charged toward the true dragon phantom that Li Lingtian had transformed into. Boom! 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 An explosion sounded in the air. This sound had already suppressed the sounds of the ice flame and the light of reincarnation. The 2 phantoms, the true dragon phantom, carried a destructive dragon qi. The domineering dragon qi was on par with the cold qi of the phantom. The pale green light of reincarnation on the phantom's body also kept colliding with the dragon qi. I know who you are. Li Lingtian's voice rang out in the air. Instantly, countless powerhouses pricked up their ears to find out what the phantom was. Ha, it's too late for you to know now. The phantom laughed loudly. His voice was unbridled and he did not take Li Lingtian seriously at all. The 10 Great Venerables of the Icebound Snow Region. Dark Nether Ancestor. Li Lingtian shouted. His voice reverberated throughout the world and the world trembled in front of his voice. All the experts and the army heard it clearly. After hearing this voice, they were all shocked, and their expressions kept changing. The Icebound Snow Region was the most mysterious and terrifying place in the Divine Martial Continent. Legend had it that there were 10 venerables. Only 9th-tier martial god experts could be venerables. No one dared to enter the Icebound Snow Region. For countless tens of thousands of years, no one had entered the icebound snow region, and no experts had left the icebound snow region. This icebound snow region was like an independent world. Another important thing was that the icebound snow region was located in Yuzhou province, which was close to the demon race. The icebound snow region was also regarded as a desolate land by the divine martial continent. He did not expect this phantom to actually come from the icebound snow region. Even if this phantom was only a Venerable's clone, it was enough to defy the heavens. That's right. Since you already know, then die. The mysterious man did not quibble because Li Lingtian had seen through his cultivation base and cultivation technique. He wanted to hide it from others, but he could not hide it from Li Lingtian. Li Lingtian was too mysterious and powerful. He was knowledgeable, had terrifying strength and unfathomable means. If it were not for the item in Li Lingtian's possession, he would not have left the frozen snow region to deal with Li Lingtian. It was unwise to provoke Li Lingtian. Light of the netherworld, light of reincarnation, fuse. Judgment of heaven and earth. As soon as the mysterious man finished speaking, his body flashed and disappeared. When he reappeared, he had already arrived at the place where the reincarnation light and the ice flame were. He grabbed with one hand and the reincarnation light quickly disappeared. Losing its target, the ice flames fiercely bombarded the phantom. However, the phantom vanished into thin air and the icy frost flame lost its target once again. In the end, it quickly shot toward Li Lingtian. It entered Li Lingtian's glabella and turned into nothing before entering his dantian. At this moment, the mysterious man appeared again. He waved his hands casually and a beam of dark light appeared. The dark light and the light of reincarnation fused together. Instantly, the world trembled. The fusion of the two lights made the world even stranger. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.